Okay, got it. I ngā rau rangatira mā, he mihi tēnei I te wakanui o te wiki o te reo Māori. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. So welcome everybody. This week, as you probably all know, is Māori Language Week, hence my greeting this evening. So I just wanted to acknowledge that this is a special week for Te Reo Māori, and of course it is also Mahuru Māori, which is the challenge to speak Te Reo for the month of September. So welcome everyone, great to have you all here. So first off, we'll get along with any apologies. So do we have any apologies this evening?
Just the one of lateness for Kane.
Yep,
yeah.
Thank you. So can we have somebody move that the Te Awamutu Community Board accept the apologies for lateness from Kane Titchener? So can I have someone to move that and someone to second it, please?
I'll move it.
Okay, Susan and Jill to second. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay, next up we have disclosures of members' interests. So do we have anything to disclose this evening?
I have, Madam Chair, with the RSA, of course. And of course, I wonder at times about Puhui as well, seeing I lived out there all that time.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. I just need to check. Do we need to move that? Susan, would you know?
No, that's for noting.
No, I'm just noting it at the moment. So if everybody does their declarations, that's all.
Okay, thank you. We will just go over those when we get to the discretionary fund anyway, just to be sure. And I don't believe we have any late items this evening.
No.
And Kieran, I've just had my phone's buzzing from Gary, so I'm presuming he's having trouble getting in. So I'm not sure if you are able or someone is able to maybe contact him for me.
Yep, we'll sort something out for you.
Thank you. Right, so the confirmation of order for the meeting. So everything is going to be staying in the order as presented on the agenda. So can we please have someone to move that the Te Awamutu Community Board confirms the order of the meeting this evening? Lou, thank you. And Jill, thank you. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Maybe if when we do the carried and the against, if maybe you guys can come off mute so that we get some noise. Otherwise it's kind of hard for me because I can only see 2 or 3 people at the most on my screen. So it's kind of hard for me to see whether you got your hands up or not. That'd be great. Okay, let's move into the public forum. Welcome Kate Latimer and Sarah Lee from the Puhui Hall Association. So Kate's the Puhui Hall Association Chair and Sarah is the funding coordinator. So welcome ladies. You have 5 minutes to address the board and tell us all about what's going on out at the Puhui Hall. So all yours.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Quilkati Maunga, ko Ern Te Awa, ko Ngāti Airehi Te Iwi, no Te Awamutu Aho, ko Katie Latimer tōku ingoa, no reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora everyone, good evening. I'm Katie Latimer and as Ange has just said, I'm the chair of the Puhui Hall Association. I'm joined by Sarah Lee, who is one of our many forces of nature on our committee this evening. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present our funding proposal to you this evening. I'm conscious that we do only have 5 minutes and so it's a short time to share the highlights of our proposal. So I'm going to take that our application and the accompanying documentation has been taken as read. Let me tell you a little bit about Puhui people. We are a vibrant, resilient rural community and we're fortunate to have this important community asset in our locality. But the hall isn't just a building. It's a community hub which enhances the social, economic and educational achievements of our community. It offers a safe and convenient place to support psychological health and well-being for our community. This has been amplified more recently while people have been doing it tough through COVID, and the hall has offered a place of connection and friendship. The Puahui Hall also supports neighbouring rural Waipa communities, and the work we are undertaking is galvanising our little community to work towards a common goal. Earlier this year, we hosted some of yourselves, the community board, at the hall, and when we aren't dealing with COVID-imposed restrictions, the hall is used to discuss community concerns, connect rural families, educate our community and young people, and provide a meeting place for agribusiness. We look forward to enhancing these opportunities in the future through the renovation project. So what does success look like for our project? The hall needs major repair and upgrade work. We need to ensure that it is safe, functional, and fit for purpose, fit for the multiple purposes, in fact, that it provides for our community. We also need to increase its capacity while retaining the character of the building and future-proof it for future generations to come. So what progress have we made? We've worked really hard to secure financial assistance from a variety of funders. Ongoing fundraising and donations form a significant part of our secured funds to date. I think it's also worth noting that the Mayor's whiskey pudding recipe in the Puahui Cookbook fundraiser has been enjoyed in many Waipa households, and I'm sure that it boosted our book sales. But we still have a significant gap, and the inequities that many rural communities experience are perpetuated by the fact that we fall outside the criteria set by many funders. This includes the inability to secure resources and support that are available to urban dwelling rate payers, while we struggle to access similar support despite our 300 or so rural dwelling rate paying families. You might ask where Puahui School fits into this picture. So in addition to the community, they do stand to benefit from the renovation programme, but you will also understand that we cannot secure any Ministry of Education funding support. The hall does not belong to the school, it belongs to the community, and we think that it should stay that way, despite the fact that actually limits our ability to secure alternative funding sources. That said, we have agreed with the school several ways of boosting the contribution that they make to the hall. You might be familiar with the whakatauki, he aha te mea nui o te ao, he tangata, he tangata, he tangata. This resonates really, really clearly with us as committee members, the Puahui community, and I expect with the community boards, committees, and council. We are all invested in people, whānau, and community. The whole restoration project symbolises what happens when a willing, passionate, and driven community comes together with an unrelenting focus on the outcome that they seek to achieve. We have come too far to stop, and we ask for your help in supporting the aspirations of the Puahui community. Kia ora, everyone.
Right, so thanks, Kate. So have we got any questions for Kate and Sarah? We'll start with Jill. Is there anything you'd like to ask or clarify while Kate and Sarah are here?
Thank you, but no, that was very clear. Thank you.
Yep, okay. Lou? Mute.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. Well done. I've got to be, you're talking to the converter with me.
Cool. Susan, any questions or anything from you?
No, I'm pretty familiar with the project. Hi, ladies. Yep. Hi, Jen. Hi, Sarah. Hi, Kate.
Sally, I must be looking for Richard. Where's Richard? Oh, no, I've got Gary next up. Gary.
Sorry, I've only just come on board there, so I'm unfortunately missed the presentation. We've only just had a late hookup, so I apologise for that.
Okay, so with what you know from what you'd learned, or any questions in regard to their application for the discretionary fund?
I'm fine.
Kane, have you got anything? You there, Kane? Okay. And is Richard here? I don't think he is he?
He's having problems getting audio, so Kieran's just sending him another invite via another email.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Susan. Okay, well, it looks like that you've done an exemplary job of your application, Katie, so everyone knows doesn't look like they've got any extra questions. So thank you very, very much for making the time to join us tonight. You're welcome to stay on. And yeah, no, we really appreciate you making that effort and do wish you all the very best. And we know you're working very hard. So yeah, good luck and we hope it goes well. We look forward to seeing some development out there.
Thanks everybody for your time. Cheerio.
Okay, night.
Ta kite.
Right. So we now move into pages 10 to 16, confirmation of the minutes. So if we can have someone to move that the Te Awamutu Community Board confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 10th of August 2021 as circulated with the agenda as a true and correct record of the proceedings. Susan?
Before we do that, can I just ask that there be an amendment to page 15, please? Paragraph 14.
Yep.
Where it says this error was acknowledged. I'd rather that it reflected that the failure to include the members to the meeting was acknowledged. And then the next sentence, it says, as result in a request for the following additional resolution to be passed to ascertain views of the complete, inserted the word complete, Te Awamutu Community Board. Please. Are you with me? Is anybody on my understanding where I'm at? It's in the paragraph recording that our discussions under the representation review process, page 15 of our agenda, where it just records about the discussion. And in the second to last sentence of that paragraph, it says this error. I don't think error is the correct word to use there. I think it should be failure to include the Waipa District Council members in the meetings.
Yeah, okay. So if so at this point, I actually disagree because those meetings weren't official meetings. So from that point of view, that wasn't actually where the error was. The error was in my wording in that report. So if we're going to be delving into this now, and if someone wants to say otherwise, I'm opening this up to the board, but my error was in the wording. It wasn't actually in having a discussion with other members of the board. There is nothing in any of the rules that say we cannot talk amongst ourselves outside of a meeting. It wasn't an official meeting. It wasn't an official workshop. It was merely a discussion. So my error was in what I wrote on that document, and what I should have said was that community board members, excluding our appointed committee councillors, felt this way, and that was where the error was.
But that isn't what the minutes record.
No, that isn't what the minutes record. So we do probably need to rectify that.
And with all due respect,
so, yep.
My understanding was that an official or a collective view of the board, which was then conveyed to the council and then to publications in the district, was arrived at that meeting. So even though it might not have been considered in your mind now an official meeting, it really set the tone for the opinion as of the board conveyed to both council and media.
So, Gary, I see you wanted to say something.
Yeah, listen, I'm happy with the amendment from Susan in this respect, so I'll second the amendment.
Okay, so that.
And just speaking to that, Madam Chair, I think and agree with that amendment. So
to say that because you weren't invited, is that what you're saying?
To the amendment.
Yeah, so sorry, can the amendment, so I'm just trying to clarify the amendment that Susan stated. Yes? Okay, all right, so, and Yep, and everybody's in favour of that. Gary, I can't see everyone. I can only see all the people I don't need.
Sorry, I've just had internet issues getting on. Could someone just repeat that amendment, please?
So I'd prefer that it read, and I'll do the sentence prior to it. Actually, I'll read the whole thing, it's not that long. Concerns are raised by a community member regarding an item in the chairman's report, committee versus community boards. This item presented the Te Awamutu Community Board view as not supporting the concept of a committee. However, the appointed councillors to the community board had not been invited to take part in these discussions. So that's all fine, but it's the next sentence that I have a small amendment to suggest. It says this error was acknowledged by the chairperson. But what I'd prefer that it said was this failure to include the Waipa District Council members on the committee was acknowledged by the chairperson. And then in the next sentence, it says this resulted in a request for the following additional resolution to be passed to ascertain the views of the Te Awamutu Community Board. I prefer that the word complete community board was added.
Yep. Okay. So, Kane, you got that?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. So, Gary's moved that. Lou seconded it, and so is everybody in favour of that?
Yeah,
Aye.
that'll be right.
Yep. Okay. Against?
Thank you. Thank you.
Carried. Okay, so that takes us back to Kieran, have you got that amendment, please?
Yes, we're all good.
Cool. So do we need to move it a second time as the whole minutes with the amendment, or that just the fact the amendment will do that for us?
The motion will include the amendment.
Cool.
So,
Okay.
so the confirm the minutes with the amendment. Moved by Gary, seconded by Lou, and passed by the community
Nice.
board.
Okay, all good. So we'll move on now to page 17, which is the tongue-tied now, Civil Defence Emergency Management Update. And I believe I've seen Dave Symes floating around on my top line of people.
Yep, I'm here.
You're there. Hi, Dave. Kia ora. Welcome.
Kia ora koutou. Yeah, thanks for having me. And early tonight, I'm jumping off to another meeting at 6:30, so appreciate that. So yeah, just a brief update with regards to civil defence, specifically relating to COVID. I guess round two, the second time round, and our involvement with that, which is obviously ongoing. So significantly different to the I guess the first breakout of COVID, mainly because that was signalled as a state of emergency. So within any state of emergency, civil defence has much more of a prominent role to play. It was always a health-led emergency, but our role within the first breakout was more significant in that we were helping with the aid and welfare to communities, and also assisting police with regards to any breaches of the level 3 or level 4 lockdown, level 4 for 50 odd days. So moving to this time, the welfare component was significantly different in that MSD became the lead. It was still a health-led event and critical situation, which we're still in. And one of our roles on this occasion was certainly to still assist health, and that was in the form of any testing stations, pop-up testing stations that may have occurred, the logistical support around that, and also around vaccination centres. Again, obviously health do the work in terms of the actual health part of it, but the logistical support, the venues, traffic control, all those sorts of things we assist with where we're requested. As mentioned, significantly different around the support to communities, and again, we would assist MSD when requested, but they were a lot more organised. I guess they'd had the chance to get themselves organised. via, I guess, preparedness and government initiatives, there was an 0800 number for people to contact to seek welfare assistance, the funding of food banks again, which had been civil defence led in the first round because I guess it came upon us a lot more quickly. This time supported by MSD, so quite different. We've run a regional centralised model through Hamilton, and we just worked what they call incident control points throughout our Western Waikato area, so across our 3 councils which form part of our shared service arrangement. And again, so that was gathering intelligence and information, reaching out to those communities in the small areas, making sure that they weren't missed or neglected, assisting MSD with any of that information that we picked up through that. Perhaps most of our work was down in the assistance was in the Tigawiti area, some of those remote areas. In Awamutu and Cambridge, there was some work we did around the vaccination centre, gathering data and forwarding information to assist with, I guess, perhaps longer hours and increasing the availability of vaccination at the marae. But to be fair, a lot of it was people seemed to be more prepared and organised. Government agencies were, and our role was less prominent, and certainly in that supportive position. So we continue on. We've been, I guess, downsized, but we continue to support through our welfare functions, our welfare committees, and also that promulgation of information through our local comms teams within councils, making sure that we're gathering that regional and national data and ensuring that it's forwarded out through our councils, executives, and certainly elected members as well. So less frequent now, usually 2 or 3 times a week, but it's still coming through at a national level. So that's where we're at the moment. Again, we'll continue sort of in that scaled down role until I guess the need or diminishes, but certainly the indication is that there's still an ongoing need for that support and welfare type situation, and also being prepared. No one wants this, but if there was an outbreak in the Waikato, clearly we would move quickly either back to level 3 or 4 and making sure that we're prepared around that potential move as well. So, yeah, happy to take any questions.
Righto, so has anyone got any questions for Dave?
I'd like to thank Dave very much for a very comprehensive report. Well done, Dave. And also to say, congratulate him that he and Kathy went down to Bulla Westport and supported the people down there in the recent flooding. So, yeah, they're a very active role. Well done. And it's very, very much appreciated. And that's a role that's underestimated that we do as civil defence do a lot of other things other than just COVID.
Anyone else?
Thank you, Lou. Yeah.
So anyone else got any questions for Dave or comments? I can't see you guys, so you're going to have to let me know.
Dave, have you got any knowledge, it's Jill here, how long the vaccination centre at the old Bunnings building's going on? Because I believe they not having very high numbers there.
To be honest, I kind of was aware when we met with them that they were prepared to go, right through for some months yet. But that was before there was certainly, when I was sort of privy to those meetings, that was before there was an outbreak and there was clearly a push to surge and get those vaccinations done. So yeah, I think percentage-wise, and I'm not sure the exact figures, but I understand Te Awamutu's not too bad. You'd have to get that from Health, and I think it's available online. But yeah, no, as long as it's available for them right through, as long as they need it. It's certainly not a short-term thing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ange, you're on mute.
So if there's no other questions, thank you very much, Dave. Appreciate you giving up your time to pop in and see us tonight, especially seeing as you've got other things to head off to. So we will just move that the Te Awamutu Community Board receive the information from David Sims in Emergency Management Operations and Local Controller. So can I have someone to move that for me?
I'll do that, Madam Chair.
Lou. Thank you, Lou. And someone to second?
I'm happy to second, Ange.
Thanks, Susan. All in favour?
Aye.
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 Against? Carried. Okay, thanks, Dave.
Thank you. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Right, next up, I think we've got Amber floating around, have we?
You do. Hopefully you guys can hear me now.
Oh, yep, I've got you there, Amber.
Unsure why my video is not showing up, but let's have a tutu here really quickly.
Okay, so Amber's here this evening. Her pages are 18 to 20 to speak to us about the Christmas Street flag restock for Te Awamutu and Kihikihi. And so Amber's our event and marketing advisor for the council. So take it away, Amber.
Hi, everybody. So hopefully we can keep this one short and sweet. It's a very straightforward report. So I met with Dean Taylor, must have been a few months ago now, to discuss the Christmas flags following Christmas, just been last year. The ones that went up were very dated in terms of the quality of the material. We've got rips and tears. We're very low in stock. And we've obviously got quite a bit of colour fade. So having some discussions around that, it was established that TA or Te Awamutu Alive was no longer in a position to be able to manage getting new stock for those flags, sourcing funding, etc. I suggested that I could pull some quotes together, pull together a report and touch base with you all. And that's what you guys have got in front of you. The suggestions that we've just come back with from getting quotes and the design are quite simple. They do mirror what we've got in Cambridge. And I mean, we know they've been really effective. We haven't had any drastic colour fade in the last year, 2 years that they've been up in Cambridge. So just welcoming any feedback, any questions, and then from there, if I've got a bit more work to do or if we can go ahead and order them. The company that we've gone through for the quote have around about a 4-week lead-in time at the moment. So we've got a bit of time up our sleeve if there are tweaks to be made. Oh, you're on mute, Ange.
It as well with this little red line. Right, so has anyone got any questions around the flags and any comments, please? Jill?
I just wonder why the community board are paying for them and not the council. I just don't see it as a community board thing unless it's because of the history of the flags.
Traditionally with the flags, some form of community group. In Cambridge, it was run by Julie Epps a few years ago. I'm unsure who it is now, or I can't recall which group it was, but they applied to the Cambridge Community Board for the last few years for their flag stock, the new stock, and years before that when they had replacements. And from what I understand from information that I can find in our system is that TA Alive or Te Awamutu Alive used to request funding from the discretionary fund for the flag. So that's why we've come back through this route. It is something that's looked after by community groups, but the advice I've been given from Dean Taylor is there are no other groups in Te Awamutu that I'm aware of that would put their hand up to organise it. So I suggested I could do it in terms of the reporting and requesting funding to do so.
So can you tell me, sorry, the actual lights that go up through town, are they, who pays for those?
That's something Dean Taylor does. I'm unsure who that is arranged through. Sally might know if it's with the parks team, perhaps. No.
So just through the chair, if I can, Jill, which lights are you referring to?
That goes through the main street. Isn't there a few odd ones through the main street?
Yeah, that wouldn't be covered by
No.
parks.
No.
The only ones that the community board has been supporting is obviously the tree that we have
Yeah.
in the rose garden. So you support
Yes.
that one from a Christmas
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if there's anything attached to the street lights, but so I think essentially what Amber's identifying is that these haven't been funded through council previously, and that's why it's coming through to the community board for your consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Flo, did you have anything?
Not a lot, but well done, Amber, as per usual. you do a great job back there. Hey, just quickly, I just had one thought was, have you contacted the Chamber of Commerce? Because I think they would benefit as well as all of us with the upgrading of the flags. I don't know, just a thought.
I haven't, but I certainly can to see if there's any interest, depending on how this resolution comes today.
Lou, anything else? Happy with the design, etc., etc.? Look, he's gone funny. Susan, I'll hand over to you because Lou's gone all.
Yeah, look, I'm comfortable with that. I think it's an integral part of a pretty important festive season in our town. And if we were to not approve the payment, there's a possibility they might not actually eventuate. And I can only imagine the uproar if we went through a Christmas season without decorative flags in our main streets of our town. So yeah, I'm supportive of it. Thanks, Amber.
Thank you.
Gary.
Thanks, Amber. Good report. I like the design. I have no problems with that at all, and I fully support the sentiment behind it. How does that fit for the rest of the guys there in just terms of our allocation of funding, which we have gone through at the moment? I know this is probably going to roll through now for a number of years with the stock if we purchase it. So it's a one-off for the next number of years. I'm probably also in support of the chamber being approached for a contribution to that as well as from us. But in terms of the sentiment behind it, the design, the rationale, yep, I fully support it. I don't know whether I go with the $6,000. I'd probably go with something a little bit less than that, but I'd certainly see what the chamber has to say about that as well. I'd like them to be approached.
Thank you for that.
Amber, can I just ask, sorry, through you, Madam Chair, can I just ask if the last lot lasted about 4 years, give or take, and thus far you're saying that you're getting quite good distance out of the ones in Cambridge, we've got to assume it's going to last a bit longer maybe? So
I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful. We've got a better system in terms of keeping them stored, containers that have been purchased with lids. We get them cleaned when they come down at the end of every season, depending on which flags they are. So we've got a good system going at the moment. I'm seeing a bit longer shelf life.
Cool.
Hopefully, I would like to think, 5, 6 plus.
Excellent. It seems slightly more palatable then.
Yes.
Yeah, and it could always be something.
Thanks, Amber.
It could be something we could budget, like $1,000 a year type of thing going forward to stick aside. Richard, did he appear anywhere? No,
He's having real problems. I don't know why.
I know
he was
on. Yeah, I don't know. Kane?
Hi, Amber. Thanks for the work you've done here. Just a question around the quote. How many, in terms of procurement, how many quotes did you get? Were there multiple options?
What we did at the start of this year, I went out to, I think it was 3 businesses all up to see what their per flag costs were. So I haven't got them specifically for this particular project, but they're worth, I'm pretty sure it was 3, but I can certainly pull it up if you require me to. And they were all within about $3 to $4 per flag of each other. Obviously, the more we order, the cheaper it becomes, and the intricacies of design. So there's quite a lot of variability there. But the much of a muchness throughout New Zealand. And there is a New Zealand company as well that we have approached. We're trying to keep it as local as possible.
Cool. Kane, do you have anything further?
No, that's fine.
Okay. I just had I see on your report, Amber, you commented that there was a possibility of putting Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays
Yes.
on the flags. And I did quite like that idea, but I didn't want to, I wondered if we could actually just have some flags, a combination that read Happy Holidays or Merry Christmas, but that we had them in English and Te Reo, so that you had some Christmas trees and some just with the Merry, you know, like
Text
with Merry,
on them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
And I just
50-50 split per town. That's absolutely a possibility as well. Yep.
And so then that just made ours a little bit unique. But I also wondered, and I know this would take longer, but just to give out, rather than being the same as Cambridge, and everyone can say this is a stupid idea, but I wondered whether we could have a little competition for the schools, even if it went to the college, and you had that simplicity was part of the criteria, and we actually did it so that you could have a bunch of kids. Oh, here's Richard, sorry. That we could have some kids, and then, you know, like, imagine how they would feel being able to drive up the street and go, wow, that's my Christmas flag. And because because they've got quite a quick turnaround, would there be enough time to do something like that? Was just the thought that I wanted to put forward.
Just from my perspective, there is time to do that. However, I'm unsure if there would be budget or resource in terms of who's going to ensure every school gets the chance to say, or how many students would get to have a chance to enter. We would then maybe have some challenges around if the design's really intricate with 16 different colours on it, but it's the most popular choice, that's going to up your price for printing.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just a few things you probably need to weigh up first if that was the way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Through you, Madam Chair.
Cool.
Through you,
Yes.
Madam Chair, just quickly, the school children's pupils at the moment are well behind in their curricula. So, yeah, it's going to be a very difficult year with COVID lockdown and all
Yeah.
that, for them with NCA and all that's going on at the moment.
Mm.
So you probably find they'd be struggling this year.
Yeah.
And just through the chair, our experience with the Awamutu Library mural, we did struggle to get students just purely because of the workload that they're under at the moment and being behind. So that has been experienced on other projects this year.
Yeah. All right. Maybe it'd be better to leave it till the next round, and maybe we could have a look at doing something, because I just thought it'd be it'd be a really neat morale boosting thing for the kids as well to see their designs down the street. Richard, did you have any comments? I just see you've popped in. Welcome, kia ora, good to have you here.
It's a wonderful thing, this technology, isn't it?
It's great. About the flags.
Yeah. One thing I do have is there are about 6 or 8 banner arms on Awamutu Street, but it's not actually included in the flag numbers.
Yes, so the flagpoles on Awamutu Street were not transformed into the flag tracks systems. So to actually access those, we need to get them either transferred over to that system, or we need to have full traffic management, cherry pickers, the likes of Waipa networks in that capacity. So the transferring of those pole systems a few years ago was before my time, but the areas that were picked at that time would have fit within a certain budget. I obviously understand with some of the developments in that area that this question may come up again as part of other projects. So at the moment, there is no way of getting those flags up there at this stage. I have no budget.
Thank you.
Alrighty, so just before we go on, did anyone else think that having the happy holidays and stuff is an idea? I mean, we could always approve today subject to some alterations, but if everyone just wants plain flags, then we can go through and do the motions. I suppose actually before we get to there, no, sorry, let's stick with that. Would everyone prefer just to have these flags looking like that, or would you prefer something slightly different? Is it, if anyone's got
Madam-
any comments on that, Jill?
Sorry, can I just hop
Sorry.
through, Madam Chair? Just
Yes.
Amber, there would be an extra cost for that, and you haven't costed that in there, have you?
If you were to do something other than what I've provided in the report.
Absolutely, Amber.
Yeah, so I'd have to go back and get a fresh quote, but I mean, if it's a slight tweak with the text, keeping the same colour, 2-colour palette, it would probably be much of a muchness.
Yeah,
but I would
that's
go
what I
back and
was-
get a new quote. If it was drastically different, I would need to bring it back to the board, which is doable with the time frames we've got. Looking at the calendar as I say that, yeah, with the time frames we've got. Yes.
Madam Chair,
Gary?
if I might, look, I'm happy with the design. That a couple of things jump out at me. Firstly, you've got the green and the red, which is really good. Everybody knows what it is. It's a stylized form, so again, it pops through to people's imagination. It's generic. It's absolutely inoffensive to anybody. I actually like it the way that it's currently presented by Amber, and having alternate reds and greens on the design like it is there, I think it will strike a chord with the residents. So I like it as it is. I think it's been put together and produced very, 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 very well.
I agree with you, Gary. I wouldn't like to see Happy Holidays because that's American. It's not New Zealand.
Oh, I was just using it as I think, is that?
Yeah, I put it in the report just because these
Yeah.
days we have different holidays that lots of our community
Yeah.
members celebrate different times of year, but obviously this one is regarding Christmas, so it was
Yeah.
just a suggestion to keep it quite broad, but totally respect that thought as well. I mean, we could even change things to have a great summer from Te Awamutu, enjoy your summer. For us that's Kiwi, but more than happy to go with 50-50 green and red Christmas trees. And that shouldn't amend too much with that quote that I've got.
Jane, have you got anything further to add? Christmas trees or some with some just Merry Christmas or Happy Summer or something like that?
Merry Christmas from the Te Awamutu Community Board. We're trying to raise our profile.
Yeah.
No, I'm pretty happy with that design, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I'm happy.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's just. So I get the general feeling is that everybody is happy just to leave them.
Just
the
end.
same
I can
thing
see
with
Jill waving.
Oh, sorry, Jill. As I say, I can't see you. You've got to have to call out. Sorry.
Sorry, I did call out, but not loud enough.
Yeah, be loud.
Just to put a spanner in the works, just a couple of things. I don't think we always have to be the same as Cambridge, and Cambridge have got that. And unfortunately, my opinion is that it does look nice with the green and red, and I love Christmas time, but it looks like a $2 Christmas card to me. It looks pretty cheap and nasty. So it would have been but I know the more you get the same, the cheaper the cost. And so my only suggestion would be that it would be nice to have maybe one Christmas tree and then one with some wording on it, but that's just my opinion.
All right.
Could certainly do
so it looks
50-50 Christmas trees and text, but we just would need to decide on what message you would like to have on there. And then we can go from there. That would still look really striking, and there's a lot of distance in terms of meters between each flagpole, so in terms of look and feel, that would be lovely as well.
Susan, did you have anything further to comment on the design part of it? I mean, I'm mindful we've got a bit to get through, so I'm sorry to drag it out.
I'm quite comfortable with it the way it is. Bit of a traditionalist. I'm not a fan of the happy holiday comment because it really is a Christian season, so I'm quite happy to avoid all of that palaver and just go with the graphic.
Okay. All right. So basically getting a feel for this, Jill and I quite like the idea of having some Merry Christmas, but everybody else is happy with just the trees. So it looks like for the next 6 or 7 years, we're having green and red Christmas trees. So we haven't got all night, so we need to move on. So can we please have someone to can we move the motion that the Te Awamutu Community Board receive the information contained in the report Christmas Street Flag Restock for Te Awamutu and Kiki, presented by Amber Dipros, Event and Marketing Advisor. B, approve, we need to approve which option, hang on, sorry, Amber. Option 1, the flag designed to match Cambridge. So the plain trees, as outlined in the options and assessment section of the report. C, that we allocate $6,000 plus GST from the discretionary fund, with any unused money being returned to uncommitted funds. And D, approve Council's Communication and Engagement Department to complete this project on the Community Board's behalf. So can we have someone to move that we do that? Kane, you happy to spend full amount? Can we have someone to second that, please?
I'm happy to second it, Ange.
Okay,
Susan.
thanks, Susan. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Against?
No.
Okay, so Jill, do you want that noted, or do you?
Yes, please.
Okay. Right, so we have however many, sorry, need to count. 5 ayes and a no. And so that means that that goes through. I just thought of something there that I just wanted to comment on. The Chamber of Commerce, Gary. I don't believe at this point in time they probably are going to have a lot of funds to be doing something like that. So yeah, I think that it will be us, just as being on that board. You're on mute.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And I appreciate what you've just said there, and listening to the other comments and just thinking while we were going through this discussion process there. And I've had some discussions with the president of the chamber. So look, in terms of their budget and things like that, it's probably a little bit of a pie in the sky, which is why, yep, look, I'll support it. And I know there's money in the budget, so I'm happy to change my mind on that one.
Cool. Okay, so we now move on to the quarterly reports. Sorry, Amber, thank you very much.
No stress, I was just going to leave quietly. Thank you very much for the
thank you.
update.
Maria, thanks for joining us.
you.
We appreciate you.
I'll have
taking the time.
updates with the time frame once I hear back from the printers. Thanks so much.
Cool, and thanks for looking after this for us.
Thank you.
Righto, so sorry about that. I'm busy fluffing around with different mouses and things. Quarterly reports. First up, we do have Brian Hudson, Manager of Transportation, pages 22 to 39. So what we might do is just move that we've received these reports before Brian and John speak to their reports. So if we can have someone move that the Te Awamutu Community Board receive the quarterly property services report of Bruce Nuns, Manager Property Service, and John Miles, Manager of Property Projects, and B, Transportation Report of Brian Hudson, Manager of Transportation. And I see Gary's got his hand up there. Thank you, Gary. Kane to second it. All those in favour?
Aye.
Yep.
Aye.
Against? Quiet. All carried. Thank you. Brian, so hopefully you're there floating around somewhere. And pages 22 to 39 for the transportation report.
Very good. Good evening, everybody. I'll take my report as read, and I'll just skip through a few of the highlights and then open the floor to questions. So on the second page there is a look ahead at our transportation program for coming year. So there's a number of road reconstruction projects there in the top of the table. And a number of them are around Te Awamutu. So we've got McGee Road out near Kihikihi, Naroto Road, which we'll be looking to upgrade over a period of about 3 years. There's some pavement failures happening in there with the truck traffic on that road. Particularly near the State Highway end. We have Punui Road in Te Awamutu, which is also a very old piece of pavement, which is starting to show wear and tear, and we'll be looking to reconstruct that one. And so that will be Punui Road and Whitmore Street would be the first ones that we'd be looking to put out in a contract later this year. Then Whitmore Street is the first part from Lion Street down towards Carey Street, where again that's a very old piece of pavement, probably 60 or 70 years old, and needs some work. Then there's the normal activities like resurfacing, seal extension. Low Road is a carry forward from last year, which will be done. Then some of the interesting and things that we can see happening about town now is the Mangapiko Stream footbridge on Ahalpo Road. So the bridge was manufactured in Tauranga and lifted into place by 2 large cranes just last month, and a little bit of a slowdown in progress with COVID, but the contractor will be getting back on site there to do the works that connect the footpaths up to the new bridge and finish that site off. And then the contract will move to replacing the footbridge in Mutu Street there opposite the Memorial Park. Other projects there, Ahalpo School pedestrian improvements is happening by West Road there, and improvements to the footpath around the underpass. And within Te Awamutu, the Cambridge Road roundabout that's up at the top of the hill, Thorncombe Park, the new subdivision going on there. And so that is progressing with a design underway at the moment, and then looking to secure the bits of property that are needed to make that, to allow us to go out to tender for the construction of that roundabout later this year or early next year. So there's cycleway projects in Cambridge, which I can touch on later in the report. There's some photographs, and I mentioned there the CCTV extension, and just the fact that we've got a meeting coming up tomorrow night with that CCTV group to look at the improvements and to consider the budget that we'll have available to do some works there. I know there's been questions about streetlight upgrading, and I've provided a response back through Kieran to a number of questions there with some information. So I imagine Kieran will distribute that information to show what's been done in the last few years with streetlight upgrading and what might be possible in the future. Unfortunately, the Waka Kotahi, the transport agency, has said with their funding cuts, they do not want to contribute to any streetlight upgrading work over the next 3 years. So we'll have to consider carefully how we progress, maybe just with the ratepayer money that we have available without subsidy. Then there's onto the following page, a bit of discussion around those the road maintenance contracts, the new ones that started, the new street lighting maintenance contract and street cleaning contracts, which seem to have got off to a good start 1 July. And there's some discussion there about the CCTV service and answering some of those questions that were asked at the previous meeting and by councillors. And then the next page, we've got some pictures of the cycleway in Cambridge on Hamilton Road, which through lockdown, we opened it up, and it is being well used already, even though there's a few parts still to finish off. But it's proving popular. And then at 3.4, there's some pictures of the Te Awa cycleway progressing along the riverbank in Cambridge, and a picture of some of the archaeology that was uncovered during the works. At 3.5, we've got a partial list of footpath renewal work. We've still to, the budget here was in doubt as to how much Waka Kotahi would fund, and they've come back recently and said that they will fund all of the maintenance and operations and renewals that we applied for. Initially, they said they were going to cut $500,000 per year off of our funding, but in their recent announcement last week, they've restored that funding, so we will be able to alter those budgets and do a bit more work. Then Megan Jolly has updated the community road safety program over the next few years, the different activities that will be happening there at 3.7 in the report. some of her recent activities. Then at 3.8, there's a report on passenger transport usage, which has, before this latest COVID lockdown, had rebounded back to levels slightly above 2019, which was great to see. We imagine that will have taken a bit of a hit again, but we hope it will rebound quickly. And then from the Waste Minimisation Officer, there's a report of the different waste minimisation activities that have happened over the last 3 months. And Sally has always got some great pictures and information about what's going on in that sphere. And finally, at number 5, there is some performance reporting, basically for the end of the last financial year for recycling and response to service requests. So happy to take any questions you've got now.
Okay, so seeing as I can see Gary, have you got anything, Gary?
No, good report. Thanks. Thanks very much, Brian. Yeah, it's interesting that you look to me first, Madam Chair. You think I'm keeping Brian honest? No, good report, Brian. And I completely understand the in terms of getting funding restored from the Transport Agency for those projects. Yeah, good work on that one there. So does that involve you negotiating or putting some quite a bit of effort into restoring that funding, or is it just something that they come out with?
Yes, I think it was really the result of looking at all of the funding requests nationwide and understanding that if they were not able to largely meet the funding request from local authorities for maintenance and renewals, and especially given the quite high rates of inflation on construction and maintenance activities, that the roading networks around the country would only go backwards without the government stepping in and making sure that that basic maintenance and renewal work could continue at the levels that local authorities sought. Yeah, certainly back in April, May, the advice we got was that there were going to be cuts, so we were pleasantly surprised last week when they said that they'd found more funding, were going to fund the maintenance and operations at the level that was needed. I mean, this did not stop the fact that the capital improvement type works where council had applied for $10 million worth of works over 3 years, with Waka Kotahi funding of $5.8 million, just over $5 million. So they have reduced that funding by half. Instead of a $5 million contribution, they're only making about a $2.5 million contribution to those improvement projects. So that's where things like that streetlight improvement work, they went through our list of applications for funding for improvements, and they said, we'll fund these areas, but not these areas. And so I'm due to take more detail of that to the Service Delivery Committee next week to advise some of the projects that have been approved for funding and those that haven't. And I guess seek the direction of elected members around how they prioritise, what funding has been provided.
All right, thanks, Brian. Just one last comment. Does that change make any difference to the pavement situation along Sloane Street on State Highway 3 between Burger King and the service station on towards Kihikiki Road? You know the one I'm talking about?
Yes, yeah, I do know the one. So, yeah, I guess it must have been about 18 months ago that Waka Kotahi's highway management team approached us and said that they were going to reconstruct that piece of road. And then they got to a point where they came back to us and said, look, sorry, that our budget has been pulled for that work. We can't proceed. And they did some temporary sort of holding works with some asphalt on the top. So I haven't heard from them yet whether their budget has been restored and that they're going to proceed with that. I mean, I hope they do proceed with it because it's pretty bumpy and it doesn't look very good. But I'm also aware that the previous contractor who held that contract for 20 years, which was originally Transfield, and they changed their name to Broad Spectrum, and then more recently they changed their name again to Venta. They lost that contract and a new contractor started 1 July. So there may actually be a little bit of a hiatus while they get their ducks in a row with that new contractor.
All right, no, thanks for that, Brian. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thanks, Gary. Richard, have you got anything?
No.
Brian?
No. Thanks, Brian.
Jill?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, that was all good. Very explained very well. Thank you, Brian. Yeah.
Susan, you got anything?
She shook her head.
Okay, I can't. Yeah, sorry, I can't see you guys. That's all.
No.
Thank you.
Hey, Ange, have you tried changing your view?
It's because I'm on my laptop and I'm trying to have Diligent open so I can follow my agenda.
Okay.
And so I can't have it wide enough to see everybody.
Okay.
So
Good.
yeah,
Cool. That's all good.
basically the main reason. Kane, thank you though. Good point.
No, that's fine. Thanks, Brian.
Okay. Brian, I just had a couple of things. I drove down to Taupo the other day via Arohina, and I'm pretty sure it's called the Waipapa Road. And I was tootling along out there and I came across a number of 50k signs and a swag of the orange, "This road is slippery when wet." And I just was wondering why there needed to be so many signs, particularly on one part there where the road is virtually dead straight.
Yes, no, that's a good question. Unfortunately, earlier in the year, there was a fatal crash on that piece of road in wet weather. And we were also alerted by residents along that road that a number of people had lost control and skidded off the road and through fences. And we put up signs initially warning people that it was clearly slippery when wet. But a number of crashes continue to happen. So we put in place some temporary speed restrictions. And then before lockdown, we had a truck or a special machine out there, a water cutting machine, which removes the excess bitumen from the surface of the road. And we had to stop that operation when we went to level 4, but they were planning to get back there and do more of that work. I guess it's one that has caught us out in that the surfacing, the seal there, still had several more years expected life in it. But whether it is a result of the last hot summers, the last couple of hot summers, that the bitumen flushed to the surface much faster than was expected. Because it wasn't on our program to, to need any work, but we've had to go in there and do that work to address the crash risk there. So the things that we're doing now are temporary holding measures until later in the summer when we can reconstruct or resurface parts of that road.
Okay, thank you. And then in my report, I just need to quickly jump to there. There were a couple of things I did ask and you probably could answer those. So just bear with me for 2 moments. Sorry. There was a couple of things I know that I asked that would come under your wasn't the Wattles. I might not have ended up putting them in, but I can ask anyway. I thought I had popped them in. Next door to the courier office, that paving along there, and I know right back when I worked at the courier, at first was a problem that got addressed, that from the big trucks going through, that they are breaking up all of that paving that had been done along there, and so now it's quite uneven and rough along that in that entranceway, in addition to the fact that the big concrete block that's supposed to stop trucks going around there keeps being crashed into, probably by the big trucks, and pushed out of the way. So I did have someone ask, is there any possibility that we can get a sign down there at each end that says no trucks? I don't know whether it'll work or whether they'll still go. I don't know, but I've seen them there, and I've seen them wrapped around the power pole in the past. And I wonder if there was a clear, some clear sort of signage to say no trucks past this point.
Interesting problem. All right. I think there was a sign there at one stage. Maybe it's been damaged and removed. But so council owns a little strip through there, which is the footpath, but the rest of it is private property. And for many years, there used to be a fence up there that actually stopped any traffic going right through, but landowners redeveloped their property and took the fence away, and then that started to create that problem of people cutting through there, or trucks going through and out that way. And I think part of the problem was also that trucks used to be able to go straight through off the end of the service lane behind the warehouse and through the Countdown supermarket car park and out onto the road, and of course then Countdown closed off their roadway and said you can't come through here. So then trucks were forced to either turn around or to try and find another way out. So council staff, at the request of the owners of those properties, put in the concrete block and a sign to discourage traffic from going right through. And we have been maintaining that concrete block and straightening it when it gets hit and things like that. Yeah, so a bit of a tricky one. Obviously, the owners of that land like to have access both ways onto the council service lane and out onto the road. So they're not in favour of closing it off because it suits them to maximise the use of their parking. But they've sort of left us holding the baby, as it were, to try and control traffic going through there. But I have asked my staff to put the repair of those cobblestones onto the contractor's program to be addressed.
Yeah, but then if you go and do that and you're not stopping the trucks, it's, you know, because like you guys had barely finished those, because as I say, I worked at the Courier when this first happened, and pretty much, you know, they're not designed for those big trucks to drive over, and you're just going to end up with them smashed again in 5 minutes.
Yeah, therein lies the difficulty. We could stop the trucks by putting up a fence on our boundary of the service lane, but that would mean then that the owners of the Courier building and the Empire building would no longer be able to get access, and would have much reduced amenity of parking and everything. So it's not easy. You know, we've taken it upon ourselves as council to fund a solution and maintain it. We're only doing that at the behest and at the allowance of the adjacent property owners.
Oh, well, maybe we can come up with a good idea to how to stop the trucks from going in there outside of a fence. There must be something. But
yes, yeah, maybe we could glue the island down to the road surface so that if they try to drive over it, they break their trucks. But you know, I don't want to make life more difficult to truck drivers than necessary. They already have a tough enough time often.
No, I wonder. Okay, thanks for that. I do understand the difficulty around that one, and those big trucks, I do know they pretty much get stuck in that service lane now because they can't actually get around by the ASB building. It's too tight for them to get round there, so that is why they went up that way. And I do know that big block is the bane of their lives because it's made it even tight for them to get through. So no, thank you for that, Brian. Anyone else got any other questions for Brian before we let him go home and have his dinner? No, they're all quiet, Brian. So thank you very much. And Karen has sent through that email, but I just haven't had a time to read through it properly. But thank you very much for getting onto that so promptly. I really appreciate it. So thank you. And we'll see you tomorrow night at the CCTV meeting.
Yes, very good. Good night.
Thanks, Brian.
Look, okay, so John Miles, manager of the property projects.
Good evening. So the report for the period 1st of April to the 30th of June. Financials pretty straightforward and explained in the next couple of pages. Activities, Cambridge. We're still working on setting up the lease agreement and service agreements for the trust that was formed to manage that property. C1, C2, C3 growth cells are now moving along again. So there's a heap of land acquisitions in that area. Cambridge Hamilton Road urbanisation, most of those acquisitions are now finalised, so they're getting on with doing those works. Hicks Road, Mungatautri, still trying to get access to open the northern enclosure. I'm hoping our lawyer's drafting the requisite things that have to go to the Maori Land Court. The agreements are signed. I've got one of them back, waiting for the other one to be given to us. So that's all underway, and hopefully it'll be open. Access will be open in the next month or so. Working on cycleway easement to try and get us to Waipuki. There's 2 properties we need. Basically got one. The other one's on the market at the moment, but I've had a number of property owners, prospective property owners ring me because they're all interested in getting a couple of EBLs. Awamutu to Parongia cycleway. I'm hoping to have enough progress on that in the next couple of months to allow them to go to tender for at least the second stage from Naroto Road to the lake. So that's coming along. The band rotunda's complete, apart from the electrical works. We've got to get a electrical supply there that was planned to be done a couple of weeks ago, but probably COVID sort of slowed that down a bit. Forest harvesting in Parongias, we're still working on that. We require a resource consent to allow that to happen. Franklin Street demolition, yeah, that's working on that. We need a heritage archaeological report and a bat report and a few other bits and pieces. Working on an asset management information system. Those provincial development funds that we got last year, those works were completed on the Maori Women's League house and the Hora Hall upgrade. Working on a property strategy that I'll take to council now in October. Got a workshop planned prior to that report going to council. Strategic plan workplace accommodation, we've fitted out the ground floor in Cambridge. So that was all completed and handed over on the 23rd of July. So that takes the desk space from about 22 or 23 people up to 53 people downstairs. Housing for the elderly, we're still working on this Vale Court expansion, 10 units. The Cambridge Cosmopolitan Club land was settled last week, so that's done. Compliance with Healthy Homes legislation, that's all done. Blundell Street, we're working on a subdivision application there at the moment, so that's underway. Survey's underway, so that's progressing. Bunch of projects at status. Levels of service, they're on track. And then key priorities going forward. There's a big chunk of land acquisition program for all these growth cells, both in Awamutu and Cambridge. Also looking at what we can do with 1262 Cambridge Road, which we bought about 2 or 3 years ago for pensioner housing and potential affordable housing. So working on that. So yeah, it's all go. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Madam Chair, yeah, through you. Good evening, John.
G'day.
Great report. Thank you very much for that. Just it's not mentioned in your report, but is there some activity, or have you had some inquiry in respect of the motorhome and camper van wastewater disposal sites or potential sites around Te Awamutu? Have you been engaging with them at all?
Yeah, I've had a couple of meetings with the Motorhome Association. We had a site meeting probably 6 weeks ago. We're looking at the site, the old rubbish dump off Parongia Road, just as you get to the Frontier Estate, just on the right there. So they're in the process. We had a meeting with affected landowners, so most of the landowners that are on that side of Parongia Road. So they're going to make some amendments to their plan to address some of those issues that were raised at that meeting. The site's right on top of the sewer pipe that goes to the treatment plant. So as long as they get the right pipe, that will be good, because one's pressurized and one's not. So they better pick the right pipe. Yeah, so that's all progressing. I'm hoping that they will be in a position to lodge their consent in the next short while. And then that'll be processed through the normal process. And yeah, so they were looking at about 100 bays. We probably cut that back slightly. So that application's imminent.
Oh, good as gold. Hey, listen, thank you for that, John. As you're aware, in the mobile service station disposal site, this is right across the road from where I work, right beside the Delectors and Butchery, and also beside the Red Kitchen. So especially in the middle of summer there, it's almost a slightly inappropriate place to have that dump site there. So I'm pleased to see that there's some progress being made on that one. Thanks for that, John.
Yep.
Sorry, Andrew, on mute.
Sorry, thanks, Gary. Thanks, Sally. Oh, now something else has popped up. It's like everywhere. Okay, anyone else got any questions for John? No? Okay, I have a couple, John. One was, I noted that in your report, there is going to be a consultant employed to handle the subdivision and the sale of the property in Blundell Street. I was just curious why we need to employ a consultant on that job.
Well, the consultant is CKL, so they're doing the survey. We don't have any surveyors. We don't have any licensed surveyors on staff, and they're also doing the planning consent application, and that is the normal process that we don't. Our planners process applications. They don't write them for me, unfortunately. So. Yep. No, that's cool. I just wondered what that clarified that beautifully. Thank you. And then I just had another question for you, and that was just in regard to potential property sales for Memorial Park. Is there anything sort of lined up yet that you're allowed to comment on, or is that still very much in the trying to sort out what might be? Well, that's part of the property strategy document that will go to council in October. So still working on that and identifying those properties and prioritising which ones are easier to dispose of. All of them have got issues with regards to, it's not a simple process for council to sell property. It's dependent on how we acquired them in the first place. Quite often they're subject to Section 40 Public Works Act offerbacks, subject to right of first refusal to Tainui. Some of them need a revocation of the reserve status. And unfortunately at the moment, the Department of Conservation haven't got many staff to process those things. So the last one I did took about 9 months to get through that process, and it was a simple trying to sell a piece of pedestrian access way back to the owner that gave it to us. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, they're not just put them on the market and get an agent and hope for the best, unfortunately. But
yeah, cool. No, just sort of wondered where you were at with that and how that was looking. So unless anyone else has got any questions, John, thank you very much for tuning in. By the looks, you're still at work, are you?
yeah. By the looks,
Oh.
I need it. I've had too much in lockdown. I need a haircut.
All right. Hey, look, thank you very much. And we'll let you finish up and get home. So, Paul Marie and kia ora for joining us tonight. Appreciate you taking the time.
No problem. See you.
Yep.
Night.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
See you.
Yes, John.
Okay. So now we move to pages 52 to 63 in regard to the Turata Water Tower at Kihikihi. We've got Anna McElray, the Senior Reserves Planner. Now, Anna, we have done our reading. So, but what I will do is I will hand over to you to speak to this first, because I see we have got a number of components to move. So I think it would be best that we listen to you, we have any questions answered, and then we'll move your report and the components of those recommendations all at the same time at the end. So it's all yours, Anna. Welcome and thanks for joining us.
Ora koutou, tuatahi, ngā mihi kia koe, Madam Chair, mō tō whakatau. It's great to have Te Wiki o Te Reo Māori recognised and to hear some Te Reo Māori being spoken. It's a reminder I've got to do a lot more practice. So good to hear it. Look, the purpose of the report is to provide some background on the Turata Water Tower, the Kihikihi Water Tower, and to seek the community board's position so we can present that up to council. The intention is we're going to go there to the Strategic Planning and Policy Committee meeting in October. And you've said I'll take the report as read, so I'll just step through, I guess, some of the key points. You'll be aware that recently we've done some initial enhancement works of a large part of the reserve where there was previously grazed. So we've stopped that grazing, we've removed a lot of the redundant farming infrastructure. And that led us on to, that was the intention, to start opening up the reserve and to start implementing some of the management plan actions. And so that led on to consideration of the water tower. So the management plan very clearly sets out the direction, which is to remove the water tower. And we think that there is a great opportunity with best vantage point in Kihikihi to create at that location a viewing picnic area that shares the history of the area, including the history of the water tower, but also the wider history, and for people to be able to enjoy those panoramic views, 360 views from that point. The report does set out that there's mixed views in the community about the future of the water tower. So the Police Cottage Temple House have made their views known. They would like to see it retained and to see a mural painted on it. But we have, through the long-term plan, also heard from the Kihikihi Ratepayers and Residents Group, and we've subsequently sought advice from Mana Whenua, and those entities support the removal of the water tower. We will need to, as part of the project, get an archaeologist to look at the plans and the demolition methodology and plans for what we might do as far as remediation of that site. And it's likely that we will need a Heritage New Zealand authority to progress those works. We have had some initial costings that's set out in the report. There is budget for a combination of the waters budget and some parks funding to do the development works. So the other part that's in the report, so there's the work part, there's also a part there around reclassification of the land that the water tower sits on. So Turata is made up of a number of different land parcels. The parcel that the tower sits on is local purpose water supply reserve under the Reserves Act. It was suggested through discussions on this matter that given the waters reform and other things that are underway, that it would probably make sense to look at reclassifying that land into well, either historic or recreation reserve. We haven't yet sought Mana Whenua's views on that, but we think that that does make sense, and we're keen to get the board's views on that, and we'll be looking to take that to SPMP to get their guidance on whether we can progress with that. There is a specified process for that in the Reserves Act. It will involve public notification and reviewing submissions on the reclassification. So there'll be quite a process to go through for that. So I think that's it from me. Happy to answer any questions. I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, kia ora, Anna. Right, so have we got any questions from the board? Jill, I can see you, so I'll start with you. Is there anything you had wanted to query or wanted clarified around that? Or comments to make? Back to Anna.
You're on mute.
Oh, you're on mute now. No. Oh, is she there yet? She realised.
Am I? Can you hear me?
You, Jill.
Oh, okay. It says I'm on mute now for me. No, that's very clear. And when can we get started?
Right.
Okay. Richard.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed because the best viewing spot in the in Kiki would be from the top of that water tower, actually, but that's my opinion. What does concern me is from a couple of the Kiki Ratepayers Association, I've heard their comments that they say that the water tower is a sign of colonialism. That's a bit disturbing when it's history. We haven't got a great deal of history in this country, so good or bad, you know, you can't just keep cutting out some parts, and I just don't think those comments are very very good towards projects like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair.
Yes, Lou, thank you.
Okay, just reading the appendix number 1 to the report from Grey Matter. They do state that there's no roof on that water tower. It was only built in 1948, so it's not a very aged thing. It has only been there since 1948, but they would have to actually create a barrier and steps up with a complete 4 protection barriers and probably have it locked up at night and everything. So there's quite a few added issues there if we did utilise it as a viewing platform.
Lou, have you got anything else in addition to that, just around your views on
I have stood there.
reporting it, or
Yeah, I have stood there, and to be honest, it's the only place in Kiki where you can see the 5 mountains. You can look right round. So you have that ability right in the middle of Kiki to stand up and see right around. You can see the Waipa River, you can see Kakapuka, Parongia, Mangatautri, and all around. So you've got a credible view. So that's obvious why they settled here in the early days.
okay. And any comments around that resource change in regard to the, resource?
So the classification
Thank
through
you,
the chair.
Sally. Yes, thank you. The classification. Thank you.
As I say, if you read that series, they classify it as at the moment, it is assumed that the tower is approximately 100 mil thick, the top section, but they can't classify it. They only classify it as not a historical issue at all. It has no history, because there's hundreds of them apparently built around the country.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Lou. Gary, did you have any comments to make?
Yeah, thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Look, I certainly support the redefining of the reclassification through to a recreation reserve. I fully support that. In terms of the tower itself, I walked around the site, and I agree with Lou, and I agree with anybody that's gone up there. It's a wonderful site, and I think in terms of a recreation, it could be far better utilised than what it has in the past. In terms of the tower, if you're going to build a viewing platform, then you build a viewing platform. My view is that you demolish or take down the one that's there. And if you want to build a viewing platform that's, say, 20 or 30 metres up, then you actually find the funding and you build a purpose-built viewing platform, because I think you get a lot more visitors to the site, and people would appreciate the elevation up there. So yeah, it doesn't worry me either way if it comes down, but it's certainly, I could see a viewing platform there of some sort, but certainly do the reclassification to a recreation reserve. That's my thoughts on it.
Cool. Kane, have you got any comments on that one?
Yeah, I just wonder if you probably can't see it, but another place in Kiki, there's this awesome, you probably can't see that, but there's this awesome mural around on a small little water tank sort of thing. So, you know, I don't necessarily think, I mean, I think there is potentially the opportunity to do that, but also I like the idea of opening that space up as well. But concerned around the change of use of that land, just ensuring that it does stay public recreational. I'm sure that's got the access there at the moment with that water usage at the moment. So, yeah.
Cool. Okay. And Susan?
It comes to this statement of position that we're going to create comes to the Strategic Planning and Policy Committee, which I chair. So I'm probably best just to say nothing at this point. Leave it to you guys to express your opinion.
Okay, great. Thank you. So from me, Anna, I'm certainly supportive of changing that classification, because I think potentially with where the Three Waters is going, that could cause a bit of a nightmare going forward. I have done a little bit of asking around on this, and yeah, I do know that they're, you know, like the house group would like to support keeping the tower. So from my perspective, I always do feel torn about these things, you know, like was it Lou just said that, you know, it was built in 1948. Well, that's still, you know, heading towards what, 70 odd years old, so it is starting to get a bit of age to it. However, from reading the report, there does appear to be some fairly reasonably good possibilities that you know, the concrete is starting to break down. There could be potential instability around the ground, and I know from how much we ended up spending on the band rotunda, when you're starting to try and fix concrete and stuff, that it gets pretty expensive. So I think from me, I do, as much as I hate pulling things down, I do support that decision from me personally. I did just want to raise one little concern that I had, and that's in a discussion I had with a member of Mana Whenua, who made the comment to me that they felt, well, they thought that the decision had been made to remove the tower. And when I said that it was on our community board agenda, and we were going to then make make recommendations as to whether we thought that it would stay up or come down, that potentially could change I'm not quite sure what the right word is, but are we treating this as a partnership, or are we treating our Manua Whenua partners as part of a consultation process, because we're still sorting out on our side, is it staying up or down? So if we had gone, no, we're definitely going to leave the tower up, we're effectively changing the playing field. So it was just something I wanted to raise. I don't want it to stop anything, but something going forward that we possibly need to be mindful of, that community board, where possible, can be involved sooner, so we have our side, all the ducks lined up before we are talking to Mana Whenua in that partnership space. So yeah, just to hopefully prevent that from becoming an issue or any misunderstandings in the future. But that said, let's move on and get these recommendations done. So if I can have someone move that the information contained in the report of Anna McElray, Senior Reserves Planner, be received, B, the Te Awamutu Community Board provides a statement of position to be presented to the Strategic Planning and Policy Committee on the proposed removal of the Turata Water Tower and repurposing of the area to a place that locals and visitors can relax and enjoy the expansive views from the reserve and learn about the area's history and landmarks. C, the Te Awamutu Community Board provides a statement of position to be presented to the Strategic Planning and Policy Committee on the reclassification of allotment 404 Town of Kihikihi Water Tower being 0.1765 from local purpose water supply reserve to historic reserve. And D, that the Te Awamutu Community Board statement of position supports the reclassification of allotment 404 Town of Kiki being, oh, that's the same thing
No,
again.
no,
Why?
back up the truck a bit, sorry, Madam Chair. Perhaps
What have I missed?
B, maybe we changed the wording to B, that the Te Awamutu Community Board provides a statement of position, either in support or not in support, to be presented to the, and the same with C, that the Te Awamutu Community Boards provides a statement of position in support or not in support to be presented to SPMP.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Just a point of order. We have in what they call as Appendix 2, assessment of options. Do we vote on those options or not?
Well, I'd move forward with that because basically we're getting, that's what this is doing, isn't it? That we either support the removal of it. So actually this isn't helping. So yes, so B is basically option 1. If we support option 1, Lou, then, which is the removal of the tower, we are saying that we are going for option 1, aren't we? Yep. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry, yeah, sorry. It doesn't actually state that in your
Okay. Then we need to we don't need to reword this. I mean, basically option 1 is to remove and repurpose the area. So in part B of our recommendation, that the Te Awamutu Community Board provides a statement of position. So instead of saying that, what we should say is that the Te Awamutu Community Board supports the removal of the Turata Water Tower and repurposing of the area to a place that locals and visitors can relax and enjoy the expansive views, da-da-da-da-da. Is that going to suffice? Anna, is that all right with you? And Kieran, is that? We do need that. I'll have to say that it's presented to the strategic planning. Oh, I hate trying to reword these things. Joe, you're usually very good at this. Where are you? So the Te Awamutu Community Board provides a statement
of position to be presented to the Strategic Planning and Policy Committee, which supports the proposed removal of the Turata Water Tower. Yeah. Does that get us where we need to go?
Sounds like it.
Absolutely.
Yep. Okay. So that's that part done. Yes. And then
the same again, do you support or not support the reclassification
of the water tower
of the land?
Yeah. Sorry. Yes. Sorry. Yeah. All right.
Sorry, and if I could just, Madam Chair, just through you, just to address Kane's point that historic reserve status would still definitely enable that public access.
Oh, lovely. Thanks, Anna. That's good reassurance before we actually vote on this and get it all sorted out. So, okay. So we need someone to move that the information contained in the report of Anna McElroy, Senior Reserves Planner, be received. Then B, that the Te Awamutu Community Board provides a statement of position to be presented to the Strategic Planning and Policy Committee, which approves the removal of the Turata Water Tower and repurposing of the area to a place that locals and visitors can relax and enjoy the expansive views from the reserve and learn about the area's history and landmarks. And then C, that the Te Awamutu Community Board provides a statement of position to be presented to the Strategic Planning and Policy Committee supporting the reclassification of allotment 404 Town of Kihikihi Water Tower being 0.1765 from local purpose water supply reserve to historic reserve. Righto, so can we have some, thank you, Gary.
I so move, Madam Chair.
Second that, Madam.
Lou, thank you, Lou. And all those in favour?
Aye.
Against? No against, carried. Right, thank you, and thank you for bearing with us. It just got a little bit confusing in there. Anna, thank you again very, very much for coming tonight and giving up your time answering those questions. Really appreciate that. So wishing you pōmarie and kia ora rawe atu. Thanks for coming. Really appreciate it. Awesome.
Thanks,
righto. And then, oh, Joe, it's your turn. Pages 64 to 101. We've got Joe Greed, the Manager of Governance, talking to us again in regard to the representation review. We can take this as read. Now let me remind me. So Joe, let's go with you and just highlight the bits that you wanted to bring back to us and anything we need to be mindful of around the representation review.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just really to highlight, really this is we're in the middle of the initial consultation proposal with the community. So we adopted our initial proposal on the 17th of August. We're out for consultation until the 29th of September. We have hearings and deliberations scheduled for 12th of October, after which we will adopt a final proposal, and then there'll be a further opportunity for the community to they can either raise appeals or objections depending on the situation. So it's quite a process of engagement with the community. This proposal that we've gone out with does include a number of changes this time. So we've reduced the number of councillors down from 13 to 10 general ward councillors and 1 Māori ward councillor. Done some minor adjustments to the Te Awamutu and Cambridge urban boundaries, and also had to have a look at how we structure our rural wards just to make sure councillors are representing a similar amount number of constituents. And so with the growth in Cambridge, we've had to make some adjustments, which has led us to propose combining the current Parongia and Kakapuku wards. And also we're looking to extend Mangatautari ward round to include Kaipaki. So quite a number of changes on the councillor front. The boards are pretty much as they are now, with really the only change apart from the boundary changes, some of the boundary changes in Cambridge to align with that. They also lose 1 board member from the Cambridge subdivision. So that's really the proposal in a nutshell. All the highlights are included in the statement of proposal. We've got an interactive map on our website if anyone's not sure about where they might be in this new proposal for people to use. So really now just if there's any questions.
Okay, so
I've got something. Yep.
Yes, Jill.
So Joe, thank you for that. So I've asked this question before at other things. So it's going out for community consultation. So how is that being publicised?
We have there's been we've done a media release. We'll be doing another one in the next week or so. We have done some initial advertisements in the newspaper. We will do some more advertising in the newspaper. I think that's either this week or next week. And we're also using social media as well. So we're using a number of our kind of usual channels that we do to engage with the community on that front.
No, that's great. I've seen nothing because I don't look on media on the computer, but I also, the newspaper hasn't been coming out too with the COVID. So I'm just wondering if instead of the second to last back page, maybe there could be a little article on the first or second page.
Yes, well, there has been a number of articles in the newspaper that have made it in there, and we will be looking to make sure we get some more advertisements in there and see if we can time them with doing our next media release and talk to the paper about whether we can get those on the same page. So yeah, that's certainly something that we have got planned.
No, it's just over COVID. A lot of
Yeah.
people have read the newspaper.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It has rocked the boat a bit. Anyone else got any questions or anything further for Joe? There is a piece on this on the representation review in my chair report where I've suggested we need to move a motion to make a submission as the community board, which obviously needs to be in by the end of the month. But if anyone's got anything they wanted clarified before we get to that, I did just wonder, Joe, your views on the best way for us to do that, to go through and answer the questions and then we can add anything extra. Does that sound like a good way of sort of ticking those boxes with? Yep.
Sounds like a good idea. Yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
No, I just wanted to sort of check to make sure we got as much covered and information back to you guys.
Yeah, I think this submission form, the purpose of that was really to highlight the changes and try and draw out some responses on those, but we've also got general comments at the end too. So,
cool. No, that sounds great.
Madam Chair, you didn't want to have the community board make a decision now to submit feedback to it while we're talking about the representation review?
How does everybody feel? Do you want to do it now? In which case we jump. My feeling would be to stick to the order of things, I think, but just purely because then we get to it and we can go over any points that we want to raise there. But if we want to do it now, I'm comfortable with that. It's up to you guys. So is there anyone that feels more strongly one way or the other? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
No, I'm good, Madam Chair. I'm fine with it.
Okay, let's do it then. All right, well, if there's no other questions, let's keep moving along. So can we please have someone to move that we receive Joe's report, so that the Te Awamutu Community Board received the report titled 2021 Representation Review of Joe Greed, Manager of Government, and that the Te Awamutu Community Board, that'll come in the other bit, Kieran, won't it? So we just need to receive the report at this point.
That is correct.
I will.
Thanks, Jill. So Gary and Jill, those in favour?
Aye.
Yeah, against? Aye. Carried. Thank you, Joe, very much. And we'll let you head home as well. So Pumare, kia ora, rawa atu.
Thanks, Joe.
Right, so next up, Gary, your notice of motion, which is pages 102 to 103.
Would you like me to speak to that one, Madam Chair?
Yes, please. Yep, you are very welcome.
Thank you. I guess it's my supporting comments there. Anybody can ask me questions on those, but I've been following this one with quite a lot of interest, and I've got some real concerns along, obviously, with many of the councils and district councils around the country in terms of the short response time which we've been allocated to have an answer back to the central government on this one. I've got issues surrounding the complete lack of evidence to support the assertion that that our water supplies are failing right across the board. I'm mildly offended by the way that the advertising or the narrative which has been coming out of the central government purports to show, green slime coming out of everywhere, and that everything's about to tip over, which isn't the case at all. And I guess my third thing is that I have a real issue with even considering relinquishing supply of the control on the supply of our water, the wastewater and the stormwater, to a central government agency which can then do what they like with it. In short, I believe that there is an agenda there somewhere which hasn't been explained to us, and For that reason there, I absolutely don't trust what's being rolled out by the government. And so on that basis there, I would suggest to our council, district council there, not to opt in and to retain control of our assets at this point. So that's the reason for the notice of motion, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Gary. And I took all your sentiments as well. So Kane has got something he'd like to comment on. So Kane, you're...
Yeah, thank you. I find it interesting that Jim Milchrist has got concerns about Three Waters and centralisation, but is quite happy to give away fluoridation decision-making to a central decision-maker, when what that will result in is a hazardous waste to be added to the shared public water supply. I fully support local decision-making in this notice of motion.
Cool, thanks, Kane. Does anyone else? Lou?
Can I speak, madam? Yeah, I look, I totally agree with your sentiments, Gary, but I do want to have a note of caution here. We as council at the moment have been given 2 more weeks of consultation. Now, if we opt out or get told to opt out in this period, we lose our say. I feel we've got to sit at the table and implement what we can to change the process or put some reality back in the process. As I said today at the council meeting, we lack accurate data. We can't make good decisions with inaccurate data, and we haven't got it. We haven't got the levels of information that we need to be able to make an accurate decision. Hopefully by sitting at the table and requesting that information, we can make those decisions. But I do agree with your whole concept, except I just feel it's possibly a little early in the piece at the moment, because the government is telling us we're not to consult at the moment with the public. We've got to wait until the 2-week period is over.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, just go that one again, because as I understand it, is there a limitation on the time that the government has set for responses from the council? A flat out time frame there. Is there a line in the sand on that one, Luke?
Absolutely, Gary, there is a time. It's the end of the month. So you're right about the short time frames, but we've been in COVID and we've received probably less information over this period, but we've got to actually put all our input. So we're doing this as best we can at the moment with the information that's been given to us.
Okay, yeah, no, thanks, Lou.
Susan, did you have a comment that you'd like to make in regard to this?
No, look, I mean, it's certainly an issue that has not got resounding, echoing support around our table or the country for that matter. It's been a very controlled process in terms of DIA explaining what will happen, when and how, and currently we're told we're in a process, as Lou said, to discuss amongst ourselves. When I say amongst ourselves, I mean elected members, about what the reforms as we know them mean to us and what further information we require. So we're to go back to them at the end of the month with those sort of findings, if you like, or those ideas. There's been a lot of hesitance around our table around I suppose the general direction of travel and whether there is actually going to be choice at the end of the day. And to that end, somewhat contrary to a little bit of advice we've received, we decided to at least seek some form of feedback from our communities, hence the page we now have on our website. The difficulty was that with that is it's not actually a formal engagement process as we know it, and kind of flies a little bit in the face of what we normally do, because we usually have a pretty well understood proposition that we go out to the public on and seek their feedback on. In this instance, it's quite difficult, as those indicated. It's pretty hairy in places. So it's a very strange beast, this thing. It's kind of moving the whole time. But just because we might not have been putting up headlines saying we're opting out, we're opting out, we're opting out, like some have, it doesn't mean to say that there's complete 100% comfort around our table. I think, would that be a fair assumption, a fair kind of summary of the situation, Lou? We're trying to play the rules, we're trying to do what they're expecting of us, but with some levels of skepticism for a whole bunch of different reasons.
I absolutely agree with Susan, and as I say, I do feel though that if we opt out, we lose our place at the table. So we've got to keep that ability to have the lines of communication kept open.
The opting out though, at this stage you wouldn't be doing that exactly though, would you? And would it not be, like you're not jumping in boots and all, but I got the impression that, you could choose to get on board with it straight away, or you can sort of sit on the fence and have a bit of a look at what they're going to be doing. That
Yeah,
there's no...
My understanding is of the entity B, which would be the entity that our district would be consumed by or been part of, is pretty much split a third, a third, a third. A third, like, yeah, all boots and all right from early on, kind of pretty comfortable with it. A third, no way, not in a month of Blue Sundays. And the other third sort of sitting in the middle going, not sure. And I think that's probably, I would think that's probably kind of indicative of perhaps most of the country. And I say that just from feedback I've received from other elected members around the place. But I guess it's the lack of clarity that's on a lot of issues that's really we're finding it difficult to make a clear decision on. And I can understand the community's frustration because it's a wickedly complex and very large and significant body of work and a really crucial part of our communities and human existence. I mean, it's the supply of water, for goodness sake. It's so crucial to survival. So I can understand the angst, but I guess we feel a little bit hand-tied, I think. Would that be fair to say, Lou? We feel like we want to try and discuss and get feedback and have some really robust discussions, but it's a little bit awkward at the moment because there's not an entirely clear picture. We ourselves aren't 100%, we don't have all the answers, put it that way. And often when we have these meetings, which are kind of rolling workshops with various entities, often we'll put questions to them and go, oh, we'll get back to you on that one. So it's kind of like,
don't know.
No, yeah. So it's a really challenging discussion for a whole lot of reasons. But look, I fully respect Gary's notice of motion, and I mean it's a democratic and sound opportunity for the community board to voice its opinion or concerns. And so from that perspective, I have no issue with it. But I suppose I'm just sort of talking to give you a background of where we're actually sitting. And that's not to dissuade you from voting one way or the other on this particular motion. And I think it's great that you've done it, Gary. But it's just to, I guess, fill in some of those gaps. And the fact that we aren't actually sitting on our hands, we're trying to grapple with this whole position as well.
Yep. Through you, Madam Chair, if I might. Listen, thanks for that, Susan and Lou, and I fully appreciate where you're coming from on this one. And I am aware that this is basically an exercise of raising our hand, if it's supported by the board, to say, hey, look, we're not happy with the concept of losing control of our water services to a government-owned entity, however that may be. Would like to retain ownership and control of the assets that we have built up over those years. So my notice of motion is simply that. It's put our finger up and go, hey, we don't think that this is a good idea. It's a recommendation to the council. There's some niggling things going on in the back of our mind. There's a huge amount of information there which hasn't been relayed to us or to the councils throughout the country. So from this particular board, I would like us to say, we don't want our assets handed over at this early stage. Now, it's only a recommendation to council, but I guess it's a bit of a shout out to say we're really, really, really concerned about this. If we do nothing and don't put a notice of motion in and don't have this discussion at this level, then it becomes a little bit too late down the track. Possibly, even though there's discussions and consultation, and I use that word advisedly on this one here, but I thought, let's put our hand up early in the piece here and say, we've got some major concerns, and these are what these concerns are.
So I like I mentioned, I took all what Gary's saying, and especially around supporting as well what Susan and Lou had said is around that area of lack of clarity to be giving stuff away, and also in light of the fact that Waipa District Council have done a good job of their water, and we've spent a lot of money, and from if I've read correctly, what government are offering to pay us for our water asset to jump into bed with them is a fraction of what the actual asset is worth. So for me personally, I would like to see us sit on the fence for a little while and just see this roll out and see how it goes. In addition to that, I know there's some really big concerns out there for our rural community in regard to, you know, water, who's responsible for water and to what degree what am I trying to say here? You know, like the quality of that water and where it's going and things, especially if they're feeding neighbours' houses and things like that through their spring on their farm. So yeah, I would like to see us support Gary's notice of motion, purely from a perspective of feedback to let people know, and also for me, a number of people I've spoken to are also concerned around that space. So if it's possible for everybody to support Gary, you know, that would be great. So
through you, Madam Chair, can I just add one extra little thing? Just a
Please.
clarification in terms of surrendering assets or transferring them or having them bought from us for a lower amount. It's actually not proposed that there be an actual transfer of ownership. And this is the unusual thing about it, is that the proposal suggests what they're referring to as a bespoke ownership model. Whereby they are still officially considered to be in community hands and owned by council, but they're co-governed by a group that has a representation of council. It's 50-50 council and 50-50 or 50-50 council and iwi. And that council representation, if you like, on that governing committee is likely to be only 6 people, and they will represent 22 territorial authorities. So we're not actually surrendering it up technically, the ownership of those assets. However, as every part of my being as a lawyer tells me, this is ownership in everything but the word. And just because you say, oh no, you still own it, often enough doesn't mean you actually own it.
Yeah, but like a trust.
Well, yeah, and I mean, ultimately, I mean, without getting too esoteric about it all, legal ownership has a whole handful of rights for an owner, right? And they are like control over, deriving income off, right to dispose of, you know, a whole lot of things. I mean, you guys know that as owners of things. In this instance, we'll have none of that. We'll be so distanced from it. And the big issue, I think, is probably that control over it, and whether the management or governance of the supply of that water will reflect what our communities want. I think it's probably fundamentally at the core one of the big issues that we have. And how can we be assured under this model that, you know, that the nameless, faceless Cubbling crew, wherever they are, have the first idea about the need to put, you know, new water lines out through a growth cell, that we have a priority. You know, like there's a whole lot of planning stuff that we're just not assured, and have that confidence that this will actually reflect or meet our needs in, I suppose. But that gets back to that notion of ownership. And as a lawyer, I go a bit silly over that, so I apologise. I digress.
No,
So
no, that's good to know.
Sorry, just one
now,
question.
Kane, did you want to say
Sorry,
something?
one question, yeah, just one question. Where will there be consultation from the council to the public on this, and how will that be?
Again, that's a question we can't answer. Yeah, look, we desperately want to. Because it's not really a decision, I think, that many councillors feel very comfortable. In fact, none of us, even the people that are supportive of the reforms, still believe it's something that should go to our communities for consultation. So, but the fact remains, there are 3 options here, right? The first one, we all agree and it all happens, and that's happy days for the government, whatever. Second one is we all hodgepodge, some fall in, some fall out, and somehow the government believes that means it's still doable. I don't know how that's going to work, because to be fair, everybody's got to be in or everybody's got to be out, or they don't go on with the reforms. And in order to potentially compel people, they could just pass empowering legislation mandating it. So, and it becomes a political question whether they have the strength or the desire to do that in face of some quite significant opposition in some of the larger, more vocal territories. Certainly some of the bigger ones that have been quite vocal. So I'm sorry, I really can't give you any certainty on that. And if the government decides to mandate, they mandate. We've got no control over it. And at the moment, we don't really have a clear vision or clear proposal that we can actually go out to our communities with and hand on heart say, this is the proposal. Throw us your questions around, you know, what are your thoughts?
So I think that begs the question, though, how are other councils able to take a position on this? Because there are councils saying that they're not interested, you know?
Yeah, good question. Good question. I guess we've probably been quite measured in our approach. And that's not to say that we haven't expressed our opinions in our own discussions. I mean, you probably don't have to watch too many of our meetings when this matter comes up to have a bit of an eye gauge on the fact that we've got a fair majority, overwhelming majority of us who are not currently in favour of the proposal as we currently understand it. But the question there is, as we currently understand it.
All right.
Just quickly again, it's
sorry, hang on. Lou, you go and then we'll come back to you, Richard. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay, Lou.
Okay. Hey, just quickly, the other thing that we're worried about is a lot of legislation that does impact on Three Waters that is still in abeyance. We don't know what the regulatory committee is going to do, or the Resource Management Act. We don't know the levels that they're expecting for our new water reticulation levels, what Te Arawatu is going to do. So we don't know what that is. We also don't know what they were protecting to us for the representation review that they're doing. So we've got all this legislation, including climate change, sitting in the background while this is going on. So we have no figures for all of this legislation. We feel that this is around the wrong way. We should be getting these other pieces of legislation to address this to be able to see what we can do.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, thanks, Lou. Richard, you wanted to comment?
Yeah, I just think this. I know the council hasn't got any information that they can share with us because they just haven't got any. But this notice of motion just highlights to them the thinking of this board with that current information that's available.
Yeah.
We won't make the decision, but it's just letting them know that we're
concerned.
A little bit, concerned about where it's going.
Okay. Did anyone else have anything further to comment on this? No. So I'm just wondering if we might want to slightly modify your recommendation, Gary, in that, and obviously it's your recommendation, but that that we just alter it slightly, that we recommend that council retain complete control until there's better information, or else we can leave it as it is, and that's our feedback to say, look, we are really concerned. So at this point in time, we would prefer that they don't sell off our water assets and jump in willy-nilly. And also we possibly need to add a little bit extra to that, because I checked with Karen and we are able to still provide the feedback. So to make sure that this does go through to council via that feedback, that we could include that in our notice of motion, that this notice of motion is to be presented in that feedback for the Three Waters discussion.
Madam Chair, I had an opportunity to review the motion when it first was submitted, and I had a think on that one there, and I could use elaborate words and phrases and terminology, but I elected not to do that. And I think Richard gets where I'm coming from on this one here. It's simply a statement from the board. It doesn't have to be too flowery. It's in my language, and it's asking the board to simply support the fact that we don't see any need to go down this track of centralising our water assets, and again, it's where the control goes. And Susan was very eloquent in terms of how she expressed the views that I have in particular about. For a start off, when I hear iwi and 50%, I'm thinking, where's this going? There's a lack of evidence to say that this particular district council has failing and crumbling water assets. We're not a coastal region, so in terms of climate change and things like that, stormwater I get, yeah, there's a bit of that going on there, but I think we're very, very well served. And I guess it's as simple as, if it's not broken, don't fix it. So this is why I've decided just to leave the motion as it currently is worded, with no changes.
Okay, no, that's good as gold. So on that note, would you like this to go through? Kieran, can I just double check, do we need to actually include in our motion that it is included in that feedback survey?
No, this would go in as a separate motion outside of the survey. So
But
this would, yeah, so it'll be a separate, taken to council as a separate, for want of a better word, agenda item.
So if we want to ensure that this is included in the feedback that goes back to the government on this part of the feedback process, we would need to say, can we please have this included in the feedback then?
A little bit confused, sorry.
Well, if we had approved to do a submission at our last meeting and we had done a submission and used the feedback process on the website as the Te Awamutu Community Board, we would have submitted something already by now. So I said to you, in light of the fact that Gary had this notice of motion, if we want that included in that feedback process, which from what I read on the website, my understanding is that feedback is taken back as part, is taken into consideration as a, for feedback to government. Will that be, will it be included? If we just have this as a motion on our agenda and it then goes to our council, it's not necessarily being included in that part of the process, is it?
Can it, Madam?
Sorry, Lou?
Can it go as an agenda item, which is spoken to at a council meeting, where someone actually speaks to it as such?
Yes, but we've made many recommendations in the past, and this is as far as they've got. So I just wanted to check, is it worth us submitting this through that feedback process so it is counted as part of the feedback for the Three Waters discussion?
No.
Through you, Madam Chair.
Certainly,
they're both separate paths. They're separate paths, but they all end up at the same place.
Okay, so as long as they end up at the same place, that's just what I want to guarantee.
Yeah. The decision that I guess the next decisions, or the D-Day, if you like, for us is the 30th of September at our council meeting. And Lou and I will certainly, in our report to council about community board activities, underline, if you like, the support for this motion. And I assume that it will go through channels in terms of an administrative sense on Kieran's end. You've also got the opportunity as individuals, or even I suppose if you decide to tonight, to empower Ange on behalf of the chair, on behalf of the community board, to actually put feedback in. It's not a formal feedback process, so there aren't actually questions there. It's just like, this is our name, this is my address, these are my thoughts. It's very
I've done mine.
It's not as sophisticated. Okay. So they're two different paths, but they end up at the same place. But you can rest assured that if you do agree to opposing the notion of the proposals as we know it, I support Gary's motion tonight, then Lou and I will do our utmost to make sure it is known to council when we meet next.
Cool. Okay, righto. Thank you very much for that, Susan. That's much appreciated. So we will just get on. So Gary, if you would like to move that the Te Awamutu Community Board recommend that council retain complete control of the district water assets and reject the government's current Three Waters proposal to acquire these assets. Yep.
So move, Madam Chair.
Second. Great. And someone to second it. Kane, thank you. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? No one. Carried. Thank you, Gary, and appreciate you taking the effort to put that through.
Thank you to the board for their support.
Right, so now we move to pages 104 to 110, which is the chairperson's report. So first up, we have Luke recently contacted me to update us on where we were with the plaque on the old post office. So as you will recall, he presented to us back in March in regard to the idea of putting up a plaque. At the time, I recall we had sort of set aside around about $500. However, a plaque that's 400 by 270, the cost actually is going to be $3,342, including GST. And the reason that it is so expensive is because of the fact that it does have an image on it. And apparently Waikato Stonecraft are one of the only places in the country that actually carry out this kind of work. So, and just in addition to clarify and Luke's comment about going to the Queen, someone did say to me, oh, that was a bit cheeky of him asking that before we'd approved it. However, he needed to get the approval to use the image and find out what image he was allowed to use. Hence, he needed to contact the Secretary of the Queen to get that permission. So it was, yeah, so she now knows about this plaque and the intention. And as you can see there, and also by the letter that's attached as part of the appendix, there's a private letter there back from her private secretary saying she was very touched and moved that Te Awamutu is going to do this. So thoughts on the plaque and the cost?
Yeah, that was me actually who said that back to Ange, and my thoughts were it was Luke actually having to tell the Queen that we weren't going to be going ahead with this now. Yeah. So bit of a joke. But anyway, I wonder if we can actually do some sort of a 50% on this and get a crowdfunder, because I think lots of people will be quite happy to donate $50 or something. Yep. I would have thought.
Yep, I quite like that idea. Jill, what's your thinking? Oh, you just turned yourself off. No, you're still off.
Is that all right?
Yeah, got you back.
Yeah, fine. No, I think I would, personally, I'd rather give the money to that than the Christmas flags. I think 100% we need to support this, but I also think it's a good idea that Kane's has come up with too. But I guess there's no actual time limit on when we have to have it up, is there? I'm not sure.
No, I don't think so. I don't recall there being a time limit.
No. So he's been going back, started it in March 2021, but I think to, let the public know there could be quite a bit of money coming in, and that would be great, and maybe we can, meet the shortfall. But to advertise it and let the people know in the newspaper, I think that would be a great idea. But 100% I think we need to do it. I actually put Luke onto Stonecraft, knowing what a great job they do with things like this. Thank you.
Oh, yep, thank you for that, Jill. Has anyone else got any comments around this?
Yeah,
please?
Madam Chair. Yep.
Gary?
Yeah, me first. Okay. Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, look, I think he's done a great job on this one here, and I fully support the concept. I think we lose far too much of the history of what has happened in small communities like ours in terms of buildings and things like that. So to have something there which is going to be set in stone and it's going to be here for a very long time, I think it's great. It's not as if I'm not a royalist, but we don't have Her Majesty here that often. So to recognise and to commemorate that visit, I think it's great. I just about fell off when I saw the cost, I have to say. I'm happy for a couple of $1,000s out of the discretionary grants to go towards it there, but I would also like to see from the remainder of the community to cover the shortfall. So I'm with Kane on this one.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay, Richard, did you have any comments here?
No, I agree with that, but I would I've got down $1,000, and then the community supply the rest, because I don't think it'll be an issue getting any funding from them.
Okay. Lou or Susan, have you got anything to add here?
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, sorry, Lou first and then Susan. Sorry, Susan.
Yeah, sorry, through you, Madam Chair. I was speaking to Luke just the other day, so he has actually been talking to me about this. One of the reasons for the cost, of course, was just the embossed emblem at the top of it. So that is apparently very difficult to replicate accurately, but it has to be done accurately because it is a royal embossing. The second thing that I wanted to raise was we could look at someone like the RSA to have advertise amongst its members. We've got a lot of people that were there. I personally stood on those steps in 1953 and watched the Queen and the Duke go past and saw them. So, you know, it was quite a big effort thing and we all got given a little medal with a little bronze medal with a blue king, which I still retain somewhere. So, yeah, I think people of my age, you know, would remember that and think of it, you know, as an era that is very important to recognise. And I do think you'd be quite surprised how many people would donate $50 or $100. It's not a big sum. I'm sure you could crowdfund to get that.
Can we put you down for $250, Lou?
Yeah, right. If I get a better salary.
You were there, mate. You were there. You were there.
Oh, funny. Okay, Susan, your comments here, please.
Look, I really struggle to understand how this fits in terms of our strategic plan as a community board and what our purpose and role is as a community board. And I mean, I applaud Luke and his passion, and he's obviously an avid royalist, and that's fantastic. But I just struggle to understand where this fits with the work of the community board, and I guess given. I'm just mindful of the situation we're in at the moment with a lot of philanthropic funding drying up, and I wonder whether our funds might be better spent for the living now in our communities. But I have absolutely no difficulty with if we're able to supply him or assist him with some support to undertake a crowdfunding exercise and to provide that moral support. I mean, we certainly said we supported it when he came to us last with a proposition, but I would struggle to support applying any of our discretionary funds towards this, but that's not to detract from the niceness of the gesture.
Okay, thank you. Has anyone else got any further comments around the plaque and supporting it, or how they see this fitting in as having community board involvement? No? Okay. So we've had a bit of a cross section of amounts bandied around. So shall we just start with, obviously there's a number of people that are supportive of putting some money towards it. So has someone got a starting figure? Obviously there's definitely support for doing either crowdfunding or getting some donations in. So if the community board is to support this, obviously there isn't an appetite, is not an appetite to support the full amount. So could we have someone suggest an amount that they would like to see and see if the rest of the community board support that?
I think based on Richard's, $1,000.
Yep. Okay.
So on run with $1,000 as well. That's a third. And given the comments that we've just had from the board members now, there, yep, a third is a really good starting amount from us for that.
Okay. All right. Well, so shall we suggest that we make the recommendation that the Te Awamutu Community Board approve the contribution to the memorial plaque to the value of $1,000. So hang on, including or plus GST? Including GST?
Always plus. Always plus.
Always plus. Righto, thanks, Karen. $1,000 plus GST from the discretionary fund to commemorate the platinum of Queen Elizabeth II and the visit she made to Te Awamutu with Prince Philip in 1954. Does that sound all right? Before I go too much further, I just want to also check before we conclude this recommendation that if we're to get involved, Joe, I think you've got chomping at the bit, if we're to get involved with any crowdfunding or fundraising, how do we sit in that space?
I was thinking that would be down to Luke. I was just wondering at the end of your recommendation if you wanted to clarify that was subject to the remainder of the funds being raised by the community. So it wasn't whether you want to just give 1,000 and see if they raise the rest, or if you want to promise 1,000 subject to, the Luke or whoever's going to be coordinating it raising the rest. So that was really my suggestion that I wanted to just put to the board.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I kind of thought that as well as I was reading it too. How we get on if the community goes nuts on it and raises plenty of money. So do we want to just rejig that we will support up to $1,000?
Yep.
And how do we word this, Joe? You know what I'm trying to say here?
So the Te Muru Community Board, what was it? Approves a contribution of up to $1,000 plus GST from its discretionary fund towards the purchase of a memorial plaque to commemorate the Platinum Jubilee of Queen Elizabeth II and the visit she made to Te Muru with Prince Philip in 1954, subject to the remainder of the funds required for the plaque purchase being raised by the community. That's a bit of a mouthful, but
but it covers everything. Did you get that,
Karen?
Karen?
Cover everything.
Pardon, Richard?
This is just the purchase of the plaque. Is that
the
main
good point?
Who's going to put it up there? Because I don't think a bit of Gorilla Glue is going to be.
Oh, it's amazing what you can do with super glue and Gorilla Glue. I think, well, if we're putting $1,000 towards, we're saying we're putting it towards the project. Maybe we should say towards the actual project of putting it up. So, Joe, we need to rejig that again. Sorry. So instead of it just being the purchase of a memorial plaque, it would be $1,000 towards the what's the word I want to say to put it up?
Installation.
The purchase and installation, would it be? The purchase and installation of a memorial park.
It would.
Does that work? Sorry.
We can have just wondering if I just have if you wanted to, if I wanted to just have a play with the words to make sure we've captured that, you could move on to the next one and we could come back in just to make sure, because we were just
through you, Madam Chair.
Yes, Lou.
Just when we put up the plaque for the centenary on Anzac Green, Waikato Stonecraft actually applied and put the plaque up because it was part of their facility, because they don't like having other people handle it because they can actually mislocate it or break it. So they actually placed it for us. And that was part of the manufacture cost.
Yeah.
That was one of their things. So you might have to just check on that one, but that's what happened.
Probably is. But if we just add in the wording to say purchase and God, I've forgotten again already. Oh my God. Installation. Thank you. Gosh, I'm losing my lolly. Installation, that would cover it just in case anyway, in case there is something that we weren't aware of.
And if I can, just through the chair, just for Joe, who's just reviewing that at the moment, just to identify who the funding is going to. At the moment, it doesn't actually indicate who the funding's going to.
Oh, well, it would go to Waikato Stonecraft for the purchase. And I'm assuming they will do the installation. But okay, Sally, you've made it more complicated.
Sorry.
Yes, because it'll come from a number of, like if we're talking about crowdfunding, then that will we'll probably be looking at one person coordinating the funds rather than everyone going to Waikato Stonecraft.
Oh,
so then, so then it kind of does. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that would be Luke, I think, as the principal organizer. I'll let you work on that for a moment. Sorry about that, guys. So in regard to Memorial Park, I would just like to acknowledge that the Parks team have addressed this, which is fantastic, and there is now some safety fence along there. So big kia ora to Sally and her team for getting that that addressed. So thank you, and I hope that did it come through on the antenna, Sally? Do you know? Because I did use it and sent photos and everything.
Unfortunately, haven't had a chance to follow up on that, but I am to follow up on that.
Yeah, cool.
Just quickly,
No, just
Madam Chair, I spoke to me.
Oh, and we did get it through a CRM as well. So yes.
Okay. Oh, that's good that we know. Well, then that was how I did it. So that if that was the way it came through, so that's good to know that it's working. So then down from there, with the I have made a recommendation just in regard to the park, and that's that we are kept abreast of the changes that are coming up, and with plenty of notice in advance, so that we can actually see what's going to be proposed in the final, I suppose, application to that space. So I'm not sure if anyone's got any comments around that, that they'd like to make before we make a recommendation.
So if I can, just through the chair, just identify that community services do provide quarterly reports, and through our quarterly report is an opportunity where we could bring information regarding Memorial Park, and obviously recognising that the concept plan was approved. So we do have an approved concept plan, and as highlighted earlier within the feedback provided by John Miles, the implementation of that is dependent on asset sales. So from a staff preference, reporting back through our existing reporting channels with that quarterly report, we would be able to meet those expectations.
So it would come through in the quarterly report with enough of a time, because often the quarterly reports are, you know, like we get the quarterly report a few months after.
So if I can, through the chair, the last two quarterly reports have been within the following month of them going to the SPMP committee. So the timing now is that they're actually within your next meeting round that they come through to you.
Okay, thanks, Sally. Anyone else got anything that they'd like to comment on in regard to that?
Yeah, I think we've got Lou, who's on pretty close to that whole subject, so he can keep us up to date monthly as well.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you, through Madam Chair. Yeah, I will be in actual fact communicating with the, as I say, Memorial Park Maintenance Committee, so we can keep abreast. I just want to make perhaps a comment that when we do get some information, perhaps Craig Smart, who is our chair, could actually sit in on the meeting just for that particular report. It's just a thought.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Lou. That's a good idea. Gary, did you have anything to say in regard to that?
No, all good, Madam Chair. No major comments either way from me.
Okay. Jill or Kane?
All good,
fine.
thank you. Yeah.
Kane?
No, fine. Thanks.
Okay. So taking the information that the board members and Sally have taken, is there any support for us to actually make it a motion, so that we have some guarantee that we do get that information? I mean, I'm not saying that in this case that I don't believe anybody. I'm just, if we have a recommendation that we have requested this, that should Sally leave or should Lou resign from the or council, that we have got something there that guarantees that information still comes through. So yeah, can I just get a rough idea? Is it worth me moving this recommendation? Have we sort of got a little bit of, is it a good idea, or shall we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good idea.
Good idea.
Okay.
No,
So
I don't think it's necessary.
Right. Okay. So we've got 1 4. We're kind of in the middle. So we'll at least just move a recommendation, and we can vote on that, so that the Te Awamutu Community Board receive information from council staff pertaining to changes related to the War Memorial Park at least 3 months in advance of the proposed time of change, to allow time for community board to provide community feedback to staff. Oh, sorry, I've just got cramp. Sorry. Can I will move that. Can I have someone to second it?
Yes,
Jill, thank you. Those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Against?
Yep.
Richard, do you want to be noted?
No, that's fine.
Okay, so just 1 against. Okay, so that's carried. Thank you. So point 3, community board meeting and public involvement. So Lou, as you all know, we have had some frustrations with getting what we're doing here at community board through to council, and there's been various feedback come through that we're not doing anything. I sat in on a meeting earlier on, and someone said that the community board was pretty much useless. So we obviously need to up our game with getting information through to council and the councillors. So Lou, I've chatted about this with Lou, and he's very kindly offered to be our spokesperson and take any items that we want raised at council raised to council back to the council meetings. So my suggestion was that we move the items or information that we want reported to council. So I was just wondering what the feeling is around that. So have we got any comments on that, or are we happy to trial it with Lou, just going back and taking that information that we don't necessarily formalise it and just say, okay, we want to take the recommendations back? I'm just quite keen to hear what people feel about that. Gary?
Yeah, if I might. Look, I'm quite happy to. Lou's given the undertaking, which I think is really, really good, because, as I understand it, this is one of the functions of the 2 councillor representatives on this board, and I think it's and they've got the feeling from the board that if there's been a little bit of I guess if something has been lacking in the past there, I think our views have been relayed quite clearly. So I'd be happy just let Lou do his work on this one here, and just undertake to, if there's a strong feeling of a particular issue there, that Lou can be our mouthpiece, if you like, at the council table there, and take that through on our behalf.
Yep, great. Thanks, Gary. Has anyone else got anything? Jill?
Yeah, I think that's wonderful too, but just for Lou to report back what actually has happened when he's taken it back, if there's, because we don't always hear what's happened at council. We have to dig for that. So, if something happened at council and Lou could report back to us, especially if there was a good opinion on it, or good or bad, but just some vocab on it, that would be a really good idea.
Okay, great. Has anyone else got any comments around that?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I find that you have a fair idea who the senior councillor who made those comments was, and they were made quite clear at the end of our last meeing, which I
No, it wasn't anything to do with that. It was nothing to do with that.
No, you just let me finish. I think we've got 2 councillors here, and they are not junior councillors. I think they convey our feelings, our decisions appropriately.
Okay, yep, fair enough. Has anyone else got any other comments?
Yeah, so my question is, what's the best way to be heard? So other than Lou, what's the best way to get something through to council? Because if there's councillors saying that we do nothing, well, I mean, for me, it's pot calling kettle black here, because So my question is, how do we get, what's the best way to be heard?
Rhetorical. Yeah. I don't know if anyone, Joe, can help answer that. I know we've had this discussion at length before, and I also have been told by councillors that you know, they're not hearing from us. So other than at our report that we do at the end of the year, that there's very little being said about what community board's doing. So other than, I'm not sure within the confines of what we are and aren't allowed to do, we do rely on Susan and Lou to take that information back and be given the opportunity to speak to the things that we've made comments on. Yeah, as I say, unless either of our councillors have got a way of doing something differently, or that Joe, as head of governance, is able to maybe come up with some other ways that we can do this. It is a problem, and Lou has, as I say, has kindly offered, so this is a way forward, and I'd be really keen to personally to give this a go and see how we get on, without making it too formal at this stage.
Just one of the other things that, you know, the other options that, you know, there's a number of options and ways you can do things in terms of, you've talked about the councillors and the annual report. There's also, if you have particular issues and you want to specifically make sure that a matter of concern goes through and is put, like if it's a, you know, if it might be something that relates to transportation or CCTV, that you can, when you're writing your recommendations and your proposals and you're doing them, you can say that you request that the, you know, service delivery committee consider. So in terms of, because sometimes what happens if you're writing recommendations and putting them forward, there might be ones that are just directed at staff, so therefore they don't get into that, they just go straight to the staff to deal with, so that they're not necessarily having potentially that oversight of the councillors around the table. So that just might be some an option that you might want to consider when you're looking at the proposals that you've got on your agendas, or you're thinking about putting on your agendas or tabling.
Cool. No, that's a good point. So to be more specific as to where we want it to go.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, sorry, Joe. Yep. Thank you. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate that. Joe?
Just another question, and it's just pure ignorance, and Joe can probably help me here. When there's an agenda for the council meeting, do they actually have a copy of our last lot of minutes from our community board?
No.
No.
Well, that's a bit sad. Yeah, that would probably help things a little bit. For
we used to get them. We used to get them, and then there was a decision made that we would no longer get them, and that started this training. And look, I have reported on activities of the board when I have felt that they merited airing with the wider elected membership around the council for things that are relevant. And so I guess I'll leave it there. It's probably best I just leave it there.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Susan.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we do need to move on. So thanks for your feedback, and thank you, Lou. So that at this point in time, Lou's offered, and I, you know, like I am sure that Susan, in Lou's absence, will be still continuing to do the same thing. So, thank you. So. Another comment's come back to me from the community, and that's that they often feel that 5 minutes at a public forum isn't allowing enough community participation. So I really just wanted to include in the report around just bouncing that idea. I don't want to get into a full discussion on this now, but really to give it some thought, and maybe for us to ask the community a little bit, would it be appreciated, would it be used if we extended the time to be able to have a little bit more of an informal discussion prior to our actual formal meeting starting, for people to be able to bring along and have a bit of a discussion about things that they might want to raise with the community board. So it's just a bit of a, that was more of a food for thought type comment in there. And then I did want to reinforce the fact that we agreed and set up appointments for each of us to liaise with our sectors of our community. And I don't think we're doing this to the best of our ability. We often have the partner meeting where we talk about meetings that we've attended. And, you know, it probably is a bit light, to be honest. So I think this is a place that the community board can really pick up our pace and be more proactive within the community, get out there and go to them, not be waiting for them to invite us. So that's that part. Joe, did you manage to sort out our wording? Do we want to pop back to that and get that cleaned up?
We can do that now, just a moment.
I can do it if you want, Joe.
Oh, have you got, oh yeah.
The proposed that the Te Awamutu Community Board approve a contribution of up to the value of $1,000 plus GST from its discretionary fund towards the supply and installation of a memorial plaque to be purchased from Waikato Stonecraft to commemorate the Platinum Jubilee of Queen Elizabeth II and the visit she made to Te Awamutu with Prince Philip in 1954, subject to the remainder of the funds required for the supply and installation of the plaque being raised by the community.
Cool. Okay, so I'm happy to move that, or would so can I have someone to second it?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Thanks, Jill. All in favour?
Aye.
Against?
Against. Aye.
Susan, against.
And
Do
I
you
want
to be noted?
I want it recorded too. Thank you. Yes,
Recorded.
please.
Cool. Thank you. So that's carried. Okay, so part 4, we've got the representation review. So I just did have a comment that I was putting forward that someone had asked. I think Susan will probably remember seeing this, because I believe, if I recall correctly, you commented that Māori representation on the community board. So I don't believe this is something we can make a call on at this point in time, but I did just want to ask, is it something going forward that we would like to propose as a possibility to look at in the next representation review when that comes around?
Can I, through the chair, just I suppose, and just to point out that you are limited by the current legislation and what you can do, unfortunately. Yeah. Whether it's the next representation review or the next one once they change the legislation, but at the moment the board can only be those that are elected to the board or a councillor representative that comes from that area. The boards can only, it's a bit like council. You can put different people on your committees, and if the board had committees, they could put different representatives on that level. But yeah, unfortunately, just with the current legislation as it is, that's not possible. But not to say that, you know, in the future, if and when things change, that would be, you know, a good thing to be considering. Sorry to put a dampener on that one.
No, that it's really sowing the seed was just the important part, so that that little seed sown, that someone who is in the position can do something. I wasn't quite sure, so thanks for clarifying that, Joe. No, that's understand the rules are the rules. So the other point there is that we do need to do a submission on behalf of the community board in response to the representation review, which closes on Wednesday the 29th. As we discussed with Joe earlier, it is probably the easiest to go through and answer the questions that are there. So is everybody in support of using that process to do the bulk of the questions and then add some additional feedback at the end? So before we move a recommendation, are there any comments around what I've proposed as a format and way forward to put through our opinion on the representation review?
Yeah, I'm happy through Madam Chair. Yep, happy with that process.
Thank you, Gary.
As long as we're only focusing on the community boards, bearing in mind it is nearly 9 o'clock already. And we've got a lot more to do.
I know, I realise the time frame. All right, well, we'll move that the Te Awamutu Community Board provides a submission for the 2021 representation review. And in addition to answering the questions in the submission survey, that we reiterate why we see community board as being an important function of Waipa local government. Kieran, sorry, I just want to jump in here. I don't want to have to read all of this out right to the bottom. So can I please just say, as stated in the chairperson's report, in regard to the recommendation, rather than reading the whole thing through? Have I got Kieran, or is she gone?
Maybe
Sorry,
Joe can answer you. Yeah.
I was talking to myself then, sorry.
Oh, that's all right.
So are you thinking that you would pass a recommendation that the Te Awamutu Community Board provides a submission for the 2021 representation review in line with the commentary provided in the chair's report? Is that?
Yeah. But to include answering the questions in the submission survey.
Yeah. In line with the and
then just the
commentary provided in the chair's report.
Yeah. Okay, so is that all right to word it like that? Yeah, okay. So in light of that, so if we can, I'm happy to move that we provide the submission by way of answering the survey questions, and in the feedback section to include the reasons for why community board is important as a function of the Waipa local government, as stated in the chair report. It's a bit long-winded, but that gets us there. So can I have someone to second that? Jill, thank you. All those in favour?
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
against? So is anyone against?
I'm against.
Yep.
So Susan, do you want to be recorded?
Yeah, why not?
Yep. Is there anyone else? Richard, are you against?
Yeah, I'm just against the chairman's report comments, not against the survey one.
Okay, so do you want to be recorded as saying that?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay. Right, so Joe, obviously we need to do these survey questions together. So are we able to pull those up at all? God.
Madam Chair, would it be advisable to do this after the meeting, or at another time? Does it have to happen during the meeting?
Well, actually, you confirm that we don't actually have to do that as part of the meeting, do we? We can have a separate Zoom meeting to go through and answer those questions. We don't have to make that a part of the public meeting.
No, I mean,
sorry, you go, Joe.
I mean, you've passed a recommendation and you've talked about the principles that you're going to, with which you're going to approach that recommendation.
Yeah. Okay, great. Okay, well, we'll do that so we can get on with this, because it's already very late. So on to the next bit. Walton Street toilets, thank you. And I do want to just add an apology there that the information that I was using to make that comment, I didn't know that at the same time that had already just been completed. So thank you again to Sally and her team for getting those toilets fixed up. So we don't need to make that recommendation, so we can cancel that out because you've already addressed it. So thank you.
Yeah. If I can just remind everybody through the chair that if they do see any issues out there, to please call in a CRM or use the Anteno app as we've talked about, because that comes through to the team and we can respond to when we receive that versus later on. So if just a reminder to please do that, that would be great.
No, trying to remind people and remember to do it ourselves. So just a quick update on the DIY garage sale that did get set back and we're waiting for a new date, and the same with the wattle. So I'm going to touch base with Colin when that goes back to level 1, and then we'll try and pull in some more people to be able to actually help us with that, because we need about 30 or 40 people. So that covers off my report. So we probably need to move that we receive the chairperson's report of Angela Holt, chairperson, for tonight's meeting. So I'll move that. Can someone second that we receive my report?
So moved, Madam. So seconded, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Gary. Those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Righto. Treasury report. Pages 111 to 113. Let's just move pretty quickly with this. That can I have someone move that the Treasury report, Te Awamutu Community Board of Native Milne, financial accountant for the period ended 31st of July 2021 be received?
Yep.
Kane, someone to second that, please.
Yep.
Richard, thank you. All in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Is there anything that anyone wanted to raise out of that report quickly? All happy from that? Okay. All right, let's hook into these discretionary funds. Now, I just would like to say we are getting very late. Are we happy to continue? I'm sorry that there was a lot there to get through tonight, so.
Madam Chair, just a reminder on your standing orders that no meeting can sit for more than 3 hours continuously without a break of at least 10 minutes unless the meeting resolves to extend the time before a break. So you've just about to hit your 3 hour mark. So does the community board want to have a 10-minute break now, or do you want to resolve to continue, or what?
Thanks, Karen, for that. I was mindful that that must have been coming up fairly soon. So thank you for that reminder. Comments, please. Do you want to take a break? Do you want to keep going?
Okay, Madam Chair, I just wondered with this one, because we've done this before on separate meetings, because this involves quite a bit of discussion going to and fro, and there's a huge number of applications on this one here. I just wonder whether we are able to adjourn this part of the meeting to another Zoom meeting, which we can have in a day or two. How does that sit with the rest of the board?
I think that's a good idea.
Richard?
Yeah.
You want to adjourn?
I think it's a good idea because this is going to take quite some time.
Yeah.
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 So, okay, so would we, I presume we need to move that we adjourn?
Sorry, I think Jill might want to say something.
Oh, sorry,
She's
Jill.
waving her hand.
Sorry.
You're on mute.
You're on mute, Jill.
Come on, Jill.
Still on mute, Jill.
Jill, we can't hear you because you're on mute.
You can hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, so it'd be really nice. And I can see this going on for a couple of hours. So it would be nice if we did adjourn. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I'm very keen to say good decisions are made when we're fresh.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, you don't have to make a motion to adjourn the meeting, but we do need a date and time to adjourn the meeting too.
Yeah, right. That was my next question. Thank you very much. So we need to set a date. So have we got a free night next week, or would you prefer to have it a little bit sooner than that? Is there any preferences from the board as to where we start to look?
I can't do Tuesday.
You can't do next Tuesday?
No.
Okay.
I can't do next Tuesday. It's executive meeting for RSA.
Okay, so
What about
Tuesday.
next Monday?
Yep, Monday's good for me.
So we're looking at the 20th.
Yep.
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 How's the 20th looking for everybody?
Yep, good.
Yep, pretty good. Good for me.
Just got to check something.
What time are we thinking about too?
I would be looking at starting at 6 o'clock, the same as what our normal meeting would start. So we just have that consistency. Yep. Okay.
I'm good for 6. If others are.
Yep. So 6 o'clock, Monday, the 20th of September.
Yep.
To complete the discretionary funds.
Yes.
Yep. Sounds fantastic.
Okay.
Right.
I like your idea, Lou. We're a bit fresher then.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
at this stage, Madam Chair, if you're just ready to adjourn the meeting, and then we can finish up.
Yep. And so and when we with that adjournment, we will also cover off any board meeting reports can come through at that meeting as well.